Chapter 2464. Come out, Pearl of Mountains and Rivers. Diagram of the Yellow River of Nine Bends. Sensing these fierce attacks, Xia Ping immediately took out his high-grade sacred weapon, Pearl of Mountains and Rivers, and summoned the formation diagram inside, completely covering the void of thousands of light years. Rumble, in an instant, the void of thousands of light years had undergone earth-shattering changes. It seemed to be shrouded by countless yellow rivers, with 9 bends and 18 bends, forming a tyrannical formation. Each river seemed to be like a giant dragon, containing unparalleled power, communicating with the law of the void, seemingly suppressing all the laws of the universe in this place. Dong dong dong. And this power also collided with many elemental dragons who had reached the Middle Ancient Realm, resulting in an earth-shattering explosion. It was like a shock between the laws, destroying the void and almost blowing up this place. All the power of the elemental laws was blocked by the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers. All of a sudden, the surrounding void was torn apart, causing a void storm and space turbulence. If an ordinary saint came to this place, he would probably be torn apart by the space turbulence. Sure enough, the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers has become more powerful. Xia Ping immediately felt very satisfied. After being promoted to a high-grade sacred weapon, the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers' power had been improved geometrically, even more powerful than it was in its heyday. If the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers was a high-grade sacred weapon, it probably would not have been damaged so easily. Damn, what kind of magic weapon is this? It can actually withstand the attack of our elemental dragons? This is a high-grade sacred weapon. It doesn't seem to be a magic weapon of our dragon clan, but from the human clan. Damn, where did Master Mateto get the human clan's sacred weapon? Although the human clan's sacred weapons are rare, it's not like they don't exist. The dragon realm is very big, and occasionally there are some. This is nothing. This Master Mateto is so arrogant. Is he relying on this high-grade sacred weapon? Don't be afraid. Even if he has a high-grade sacred weapon, if he wants to use it, he also needs magic power. Under the strong attack of our elemental dragons, sooner or later, Master Mateto's magic power will be exhausted and he will die. That's right. If he fights with us, the one who will die will definitely be this kid. Many elemental dragons were also taken aback. They didn't expect that their full power attack would be easily blocked by Master Mateto's magic weapon. However, they did not lose confidence. They had seen far too many things. A mere high-grade saint artifact was not enough for them to give up just like that. Boundless Space Map. Xia Ping formed a seal with both his hands and channeled his magic power into it, immediately summoning the second diagram of the Mountain River Pearl. Boom! In an instant, the void within a radius of several thousand light years distorted. All the void became layered, as if countless dimensions of space-time were stacked together. In just a few breaths' time, with the bead of mountains and rivers as the center, the space within a radius of several thousand light years had been transformed into a spatial maze. It sealed off the heavens and locked down the earth, and no power could escape. Unless the power of the Mountain River Pearl's restriction formation was destroyed, they would be trapped in this space maze. What does Master Mateto want to do? Does he want to trap us and kill us all in one fell swoop? Seeing this scene, Ice Dragon's pupils shrank involuntarily. It sensed that it seemed that it could not escape from this place. No matter where it escaped to, it was as if it was a space corridor, and it would be trapped in this place forever. Ridiculous, he dares to use a spatial maze in front of us elemental dragons. Isn't this showing off in front of an expert? Let's see if he dares to continue to be arrogant after we break this shit maze. Many elemental dragons shouted angrily. They were completely enraged. This kid actually wanted to trap all of them, as if he was afraid that they would escape. He completely regarded them as fish on the chopping board. This was unacceptable. In the face of such a situation, even a clay figurine would have some anger. Who could stand it? However, before the elemental dragons could make a move, Xia Ping attacked again in one go. High-grade saint artifact, Pudu Divine Saber. This was a high-grade saint artifact that he had obtained from a Buddhist saint he had killed before, but he had never used it before. Now he finally took it out. In an instant, Xia Ping held the Pudu divine saber in his hand, channeled the huge magic power in his body, and slashed at these elemental dragons. Boom! A golden saber light cut through space and time, ignoring the restraints of the space-time domain. It seemed to contain waves of Zen and directly attacked the enemy's body and soul. What? Many elemental dragons were shocked. They could feel that this slash did not contain any killing intent, but they could feel waves of great will to save all living beings. Under the influence of such a will, they felt as if they were being purified and completely surrendered. This was the power of the Pudu divine saber. With one slash, it was as if it could save all living beings. Often, the living beings that were killed did not feel like they had died. Instead, they felt as if they had been redeemed and ascended to paradise. Every life that was killed by the Pudu divine saber died in an extremely peaceful manner. There was no pain. Instead, their faces were filled with joy, as if they had been led to paradise by a Buddhist emissary. This slash landed squarely on the bodies of a few elemental dragons, instantly splitting their bodies in half. They could not help but let out shrill screams. Even their souls were severely injured. Even so, with the powerful immortal bodies and elemental bodies of the elemental dragons, they quickly recovered in just a breath's time. However, their auras were a little weaker. They can't be killed even after this? Xia Ping raised his eyebrows. If it was an ancient dragon of the same level, he would have killed them with one slash. There was no exception. Even a medieval metal dragon would be severely injured by this slash and be on the verge of death. However, these elemental dragons were only lightly injured and not seriously injured. One could imagine that the elemental bodies of these elemental dragons were indeed extremely mysterious. They were even more powerful than the ordinary immortal bodies. They were a species that was very difficult to kill. Damn Master Mutato. Another superior sacred artifact, and it is a Buddhist sacred artifact. Where did this bastard get so many magic treasures? We must kill this bastard. We can't let him continue to do whatever he wants. No matter how many sacred artifacts this kid has, they are useless against the elemental bodies of us elemental dragons. First, freeze him and completely control him. Later, I will cut this kid into pieces. It seems that Master Mutato has a lot of treasures on him. Not only does he have the Enlightenment Flower and the Crimson Blood Dragon Divine Grass, he also has many more magic treasures. We might be rich this time. The many elemental dragons were filled with killing intent and greed appeared in their eyes. It seemed that they could not wait to take away all the treasures on Xia Ping's body and make them their own. With a loud bang, a line of death in the distance was instantly cut off. Without a doubt. With a boom, the first to bear the brunt of the attack was the sand dragon. It did not even try to run. It only felt a mysterious and tyrannical power pass through its body silently. With a crack, its soul was obliterated in the next second. It was as if the Grim Reaper's scythe had harvested its soul. Even its elemental body could not withstand it. Sha Long. Seeing this scene, the other elemental dragons were so scared that they peed their pants. It was just a single slash. This famous sand dragon was known as the symbol of death. It was extremely ferocious and had killed countless people, yet it had been killed just like that. Moreover, when it died, there were no external injuries. The saber light directly penetrated its body, destroying its soul completely. Not a single bit of its soul power was left. What kind of terrifying and strange power was this? Was this still a dragon? Could this be a dragon of disaster born in some corner of the universe? Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Everything to the netherworld. Xia Ping's figure flashed, and he casually waved his saber again. Instantly, the saber light flashed, and a line of death in the depths of the void was easily and silently torn apart. Boom! The most violent lava dragon was dead. Its huge body stood quietly in the void. Its body was like a sacred fire that would never be extinguished, burning fiercely. But now, it was like a collapsing mountain. It fell to the ground just like that. The color in the depths of its eyes had completely disappeared, and the soul aura on its body had also disappeared completely. This slash was simple and direct, but it was extremely fatal. A truly tyrannical and invincible magical power was like this. There were no fancy things. With one slash, the enemy could be killed. There was no way to block, look directly at, avoid, or resist. Damn Master Mutato. Everyone, don't be afraid. Let's fight with this bastard. I don't believe that he is really invincible. Seeing this situation, the Earth Dragon went completely crazy. It couldn't stand the silent fear of death spreading in the void. It also didn't want to be killed by Master Mutato without a sound. Boom. A violent power of the law of Earth gushed out of its body. Countless times the gravity was superimposed. It even burned its own chi and blood, turning itself into a black hole that devoured everything. Obviously, this Earth Dragon was going to go all out. Even if it died, it wanted to drag this kid down with it. But Xiaoping didn't even look at it. His eyes were indifferent, like a high and mighty god. The Pudu divine saber in his hand gently slashed. Boom. The Earth Dragon, who had gone completely crazy, died in an instant. Its body, which was originally as huge as a mountain, was like a piece of paper. A formless power of death completely destroyed its soul. When it died, its eyes were wide open, revealing fear, shock, and disbelief. It seemed that it couldn't believe that it was killed so easily. Seeing this scene, the other elemental dragons went crazy. This was an Earth Dragon that had reached the Middle Ancient Realm. It was known as one of the dragons with the strongest defense. It was born proficient in the law of Earth and was known as a dragon that would never die if it stood on the ground. But now, with just one slash, this famous Earth Dragon was killed. What kind of joke was this? What kind of power was this? What kind of dragon was this Master Mutato? They had never heard of it. We surrender, we surrender. Don't kill me. I am willing to surrender to you. With a plop, an ice dragon immediately knelt on the ground, showing its intention to surrender. It was completely frightened. This was not a dragon at all, but the god of the underworld. How could there be such a terrifying ancient dragon in the world? I also surrender. Please don't kill me. At this time, the other elemental dragons were also scared out of their wits. They had lost all will to resist. The battle of killing 3 ancient dragons in a row had completely frightened them. Such a method was simply killing dragons like cutting grass. No matter how they struggled, they would die. In this case, they might as well surrender. Maybe they could still survive. If the dragons in the outside world saw this scene, they would be scared out of their wits. Many ancient dragons were actually scared to the point of kneeling and surrendering by a mere ancient dragon. This kind of thing was simply unheard of. Chapter 2466. Seeing that these elemental dragons were intimidated, Xiaoping did not continue to kill them. Instead, he chose to seal all of them and imprison them in the space of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers. As for the dead ancient dragons, they were refined into time fruits. As expected of the Eye of Hell. It's really powerful, but the consumption is a bit high. Xiaoping sighed. This Eye of Hell could directly kill sages, find the enemy's line of death, and destroy them from the root. However, the burden of using this eye was very heavy. Although he did not fight for a long time, it rapidly consumed a part of his magic power. One must know that his magic power was so vast that even ancient sages could not compare to it. Even so, after opening this eye, he still felt a wave of fatigue. This was only suitable as a trump card to kill enemies at a critical moment. It could not be used as a regular method. I wonder what treasures these elemental dragons have on them. Xiaoping touched his chin. In this relic, he was not the only one who found treasures. The other dragons also had their own encounters and obtained many treasures. It was the same for these powerful elemental dragons. Thinking of this, he immediately took out the spatial rings he obtained from these elemental dragons and forcefully broke the restrictive formations, revealing the things inside. What a treasure! Seeing the treasures inside, Xiaoping's eyes lit up. Heavens, this is a golden-bodied arhat fruit. This is a Tao fruit condensed from the life essence of a Buddhist golden-bodied arhat. If you eat it, you will have a chance to cultivate the Buddhist golden-bodied arhat body, becoming invincible. I can't believe I actually saw such a wondrous fruit in this place. When the green ox saw the treasures inside, his eyes could not help but pop out in shock. He said that this golden arhat fruit was extremely rare. It must be a Buddhist Sarira condensed from the flesh and blood essence of a Buddhist almighty after he passed away. Then, it had to be planted. After being nurtured by the Buddhist Dharma, tempered by the laws of heaven and earth, and permeated by the energy of the universe, only then would it have a chance to give birth to such a golden arhat fruit. In the Buddhist world, people who had not made great contributions would not be qualified to have such a wondrous fruit. In the outside world, it was impossible to have one at all. This was a treasure that could not be bought even with money. The green ox had only heard of such a wondrous fruit before, but he had never seen it before. Fuck, are you kidding me? This is a 9 immortal vine. Continuing to watch, the green ox's eyes widened, and his heart almost twitched. What's a 9 immortal vine? Xia Ping asked curiously. This is an extremely rare plant in the universe. The green ox immediately said, it has 9 vines and has the characteristic of immortality. Even if one of the vines is cut off, it can quickly recover at a speed with the naked eye, just like the immortal body of a saint. However, the most important thing was not this, but the liquid that flowed out from the 9 immortal vine. Every drop of the liquid contained the power of heaven and earth, capable of reviving the dead and regenerating flesh and bones. No matter how heavy the injury was, as long as one took a drop of the 9 immortal vine's liquid, they would be able to recover at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. In fact, this kind of liquid is extremely effective in healing the soul injuries of sages. What? Hearing this, Xia Ping was shocked. A treasure that could heal injuries to the soul couldn't just be described as precious. It was simply priceless and priceless. If the sages knew about this, they would definitely go crazy. This was because all the elixirs on the market that could heal injuries to the soul would basically be sold out. They would definitely not be sold easily. One could imagine how precious this 9 immortal vine was. That's right, it's precisely because of its amazing healing effect that it is crazily sought after by countless sages. The green ox said excitedly, but what's more terrifying is that it has the characteristic of immortality. Even if one vine is cut off and drops of the precious liquid, it can still quickly recover. One can imagine that having the 9 immortal vine is equivalent to having a super machine that can produce endless wealth. Which sage wouldn't go crazy for it? Hearing this, Xia Ping finally understood how precious the 9 immortal vine was. It was basically a treasure bowl that could produce spiritual liquid that could heal the flesh and bones of the dead, and it could also regenerate continuously. This could no longer be described as a supreme treasure. Its value was no less than that of the Enlightenment flower. From a certain perspective, to the entire race, its value was even greater than that of the Enlightenment flower. After all, no matter how powerful the Enlightenment flower was, it could only be used by one person, while the 9 immortal vine could save the life of an entire race. One could imagine how precious and beneficial it was. Oh my God, this is the sea god tea. Seeing another sacred herb in the storage ring, the green ox almost fainted from fright. These top-notch sacred herbs appearing one after another was truly unbearable. The so-called sea god tea was also a top-notch sacred herb in the universe. It had to grow in an extremely harsh environment. It had to grow on a planet filled with water elements, and after millions of eras of cultivation, it had to devour the origin energy of the universe before it could be born. If an ordinary person were to consume it, they would unknowingly obtain the Tao of water, which would allow them to grasp innate abilities of water, as if they were the ruler of the ocean. Moreover, they would have a unique talent for comprehending the laws of water, which was even more terrifying than the water dragon. It could be said that if an ordinary person were to obtain this sea god tea and consume it, they would immediately become a top-notch water genius in the universe. Cultivating water-type techniques would allow them to achieve twice the results with half the effort, like adding wings to a tiger. What a treasure! Seeing this stalk of sea god tea, Xia Ping knew that he had plundered another good thing. Master, this formless dragon Theodore is practically a cosmic thief. He really has plundered every place in the universe. Who knows how many treasure vaults he's gone to and how many treasures and sacred herbs he's taken? The green ox exclaimed. In truth, he did not even know how to describe his current feelings. Sacred herbs like these were extremely rare in the universe, and some were even thought to be extinct or on the verge of extinction. He did not expect to find them here. Back then, his old master, the mountain river saint, was a knowledgeable alchemist, who knew how many saints sought him out for alchemy, and the number of sacred herbs he had seen was innumerable. Even so, he had not seen a single sacred herb in this place. One could imagine how precious these sacred herbs were, and how unique they were in the universe. From this, one could see how wealthy the formless dragon Theodore was. While he would not dare to say that he was the richest life form in the universe, he was definitely one of the richest. Any random item he took out was enough to make countless saints fight to the death and start a war. Chapter 2467. A month passed by in the blink of an eye. Among them, there were also many dragons who wanted to find trouble with Xia Ping, trying to snatch Xia Ping's enlightenment flower and invisible token, but they were either beheaded or imprisoned in the space of the mountain river pearl, becoming eternal slaves. As time passed, invisible tokens continued to appear everywhere in the ruins, and the surrounding dragons became less and less to chase after Xia Ping. They also knew that Xia Ping was not a dragon to be trifled with. This Master Potato is really strange. He can actually live for a month, and even to this day, no one can snatch the invisible token and enlightenment flower from him. It is simply incredible. Some dragons felt confused. They felt that according to the strength of this Master Potato, surrounded by dragons, like a tiger eyeing its prey, with the whole world as his enemy, let alone living for a month, even living for 3 days would be amazing. But this Master Potato was still alive and well, living safe and sound to this day. It is indeed incredible. I have long heard that there were many Middle Ancient dragons who went to find trouble with Master Potato, but there is no news so far. I don't know whether those Middle Ancient dragons are dead or alive. Some dragons knew some gossip. Are you kidding me? They went to find trouble with Master Potato, but now there is no way to get any news. They are naturally dead. How can we not know whether they are dead or alive? Some dragons were dumbfounded. According to the strength of the Middle Ancient dragons, each of them had comprehended the law of time and mastered the domain of time and space. Even if such an existence could not beat the other party, they should be able to escape. However, they encountered this Master Potato, and not a single news was leaked, as if he disappeared from this world silently, which made the dragons even more afraid. Indeed, many dragons also think that those Middle Ancient dragons are dead. That Master Potato is like a black hole. Who knows how many dragons' lives have been devoured? It is terrifying. I think this is too exaggerated, that Master Potato is only in the late ancient realm, not to mention that he can contend with the Middle Ancient dragons. He can actually kill them. What a joke. Yeah, I still can't imagine such an absurd thing. A group of dragons simply couldn't believe it, and at the same time, they were also puzzled. At this time, an old dragon said in a deep voice, "Actually, it's not impossible. There are countless secrets in the universe. I heard that in the Forbidden Darkness Zone, there was once an ancestor of the dragon race who encountered a kind of sacred medicine called the Yellow Springs flower. As soon as they touched the flower, they were immediately swept away by a mysterious power of death. Even the primordial dragons were affected. Their souls were pulled into the Yellow Springs and silently died. If Master Potato could silently kill so many ancient dragons and make them unable to escape, then he must have grasped such a mysterious treasure. Although it might not be a miraculous plant like the Yellow Springs flower, it might have the same effect as the Yellow Springs flower. I don't know, but those ancient dragons all fell for it. It voiced its conjecture. Hearing these words, the other dragons couldn't help but come to a sudden realization. So that's how it is. It seems that it's really as you said, that Master Potato must have some mysterious means that the dragons don't know about. But what kind of method is it? If I know, I can solve this Master Potato. A dragon revealed a greedy look. I advise you not to provoke that Master Potato again. Since it's a mysterious method, it's not easy to find out. Didn't you see those ancient dragons? Silently dying is enough to prove the horror of this method. Before knowing what this method is, going to look for Master Potato is just throwing away your life. The old dragon sneered. Hearing these words, many dragons couldn't help but shiver. It was indeed like this. Before knowing Master Potato's secret method, going to look for Master Potato was just throwing away one's life. Perhaps before they could find out the secret of Master Potato, they would already be killed. Now that the entire ruins was big enough, there was not only a top sacred medicine like the Enlightenment Flower. If they looked carefully, they could also find other top sacred medicines. There was no need for them to risk their lives to find trouble with Master Potato. Because so many ancient dragons died, it has also proved that Master Potato has the qualifications to obtain the Enlightenment Flower. 3-year-old children swaggered in the market with gold. Naturally, it would also arouse the greed of countless people with ulterior motives. But if it was a 2-meter-tall strong man with a steel sword holding gold, it was guaranteed that not many people would dare to covet it. This was the difference between the two. Only the strong could deserve the top treasures. And during this time, Master Potato's achievements could fully prove this point. Because of this, except for some hotheads, there were fewer and fewer dragons in the entire ruins who went to find trouble with Xia Ping. They were also afraid of Xia Ping's strength. At this time, Xia Ping, under the leadership of Fate Dragon Betty and Invisible Dragon Kalita, searched everywhere in the ruins for treasures. Those stupid good-for-nothing dragons don't dare to come. Let's see who else can stop this dragon from searching for treasures. Fate Dragon Betty was proud. She felt that it was cool to have adult dragons supporting her. She could completely rely on her master's power. No dragon could bully her, and she could completely walk unhindered in the ruins. Before, those dragons who wanted to find trouble were all killed by the adult dragons, so now, it was those good-for-nothing dragons who ran away in fear when they saw her. The situation was completely reversed. Adult dragon, we have helped you search for a lot of treasures. Can you give us the Crimson Blood Dragon Divine Grass? Invisible Dragon Kalita looked at Xia Ping expectantly. Fate Dragon Betty was the same. Because the Crimson Blood Dragon Divine Grass could improve their bloodline, it was very important. As for the Enlightenment Flower, it was too precious. It would be a waste to give it to them. Of course, Xia Ping would not give it to them. Well, you have indeed contributed a lot. Then this Crimson Blood Dragon Divine Grass is yours. After thinking about it, Xia Ping felt that although the Crimson Blood Dragon Divine Grass was very precious, it would only be of great use to the dragon race. For him, as a human, it was actually not very useful. Moreover, he already had the Hell Golden Crow bloodline. It would be a waste to get the Ancestral Dragon bloodline. Moreover, it was just a Crimson Blood Dragon Divine Grass. It contained pitifully little Ancestral Dragon bloodline. That's great. Fate Dragon Betty and Invisible Dragon Kalita were extremely excited. They received the Crimson Blood Dragon Divine Grass from Xia Ping, their little eyes filled with excitement as they cheered joyfully. Is it time? Suddenly, Xia Ping's heart skipped a beat. He felt the invisible dragon in his hand tremble slightly, and a huge amount of information immediately surged into the depths of his sea of consciousness. It was as if the information was telling him that he had passed the test and could enter the core cave of Invisible Dragon Theodore. Chapter 2468. Am I still unable to enter the core cave abode for the time being? Xia Ping's heart skipped a beat. According to the invisible token, he had passed the first round of the test. However, he would have to wait for the other dragons with the invisible token to complete the test if he wanted to enter the core cave abode. During this period, the invisible token would not reveal the specific geographical location of the holder. It even had the authority to teleport in the outer cave abode and so on. This could be considered as giving the dragons who passed the test some privileges and a guarantee of safety. Looks like I still have to wait for some time, but it shouldn't take too long. At that thought, Xia Ping calmed down and quietly waited for the other dragons with the invisible token to complete the test. He estimated that it would take at least a month. However, this amount of time was nothing to him. By the way, I should take advantage of this time to improve my cultivation base as soon as possible. Xia Ping decided to go into seclusion for a period of time. He took out a time fruit. Recently, he had killed some primordial dragons and refined at least a dozen time fruits. Each time fruit contained extremely large amounts of energy and fragments related to the law of time. After devouring them, it would definitely be of great help to his cultivation base. At that thought, he immediately consumed the time fruit. Instantly, a large amount of origin energy surged into his limbs and bones and flowed into the 9 purple mansion spaces in his body. At the same time, the magic power in his body was also increasing. Most importantly, the spatial law fragments in his body were also increasing rapidly. Vaguely, Xia Ping sensed that huge spatial law fragments were condensing in the depths of his sea of consciousness. They kept piecing together, and the rich power of the spatial law surged back and forth in his body. He even sensed traces of the mystery of the law of time and seemed to have comprehended the mystery of the time dimension. Although it was only for a short period of time, it brought Xia Ping great benefits. Just like that, Xia Ping sat cross-legged in a cave, quietly devouring the huge amount of origin energy brought about by the fruit of time, as well as the huge amount of law comprehension it brought. At that moment, in the space of the mountain river Pearl, the giant dragons that Xia Ping had captured and put into the space of the mountain river Pearl also woke up one by one. They soon realized that they were no longer in the ruins or even in the dragon world. Damn it, what the hell is this place? Why is the heaven and earth spirit chi here so thin? I can't feel the rich dragon clan's origin energy at all. Many of the giant dragons were shocked. This was because the dragon realm was considered one of the top cultivation holy lands in the universe. The richness of the world spirit chi was not something the mountain river Pearl could compare with. Moreover, the dragon world's air also gave off dense dragon race origin energy, and by devouring it every day, it would be greatly beneficial to dragons' growth, increasing their cultivation efficiency and speed. However, the outside world did not have such origin energy. This made many dragons feel extremely uncomfortable. It was as if they had returned from a beautiful city with fresh air and beautiful scenery to a polluted city. The difference between the two was simply too great. Hee, what is this place? This is a prison. Since you've come here, you won't be able to leave this place for the rest of your lives. Just stay here obediently. At this moment, a voice came from the side. The one who spoke was the black dragon Pausda. He acted like a senior as he lectured the newcomers. Do you fucking know that I'm a middle immemorial dragon, and a great elemental dragon at that? How dare you speak to me in such a tone? An elemental dragon scolded. However, before it could finish speaking, the black dragon Pausda raised his hand and slapped it. With a smack, the elemental dragon was sent flying. It spun a few times in the air before falling to the ground, making it dizzy. I don't fucking care what middle immemorial dragon you are. You speak as if I'm not a middle immemorial dragon. Who doesn't have an awesome dragon here? When I was in the outside world, you weren't even born yet. Here, even a tiger has to lie down, and even a dragon has to lie down. There are no exceptions. Do you believe that I won't hang you up and expose you to the sun for 3 days and 3 nights? The black dragon Pausda scolded arrogantly. What? The other dragons who had just been caught were stunned, especially the elemental dragon that was sent flying by the slap. It was even more dumbfounded. Ever since it had advanced to the middle immemorial realm, it had never been hit by a dragon like this. Wait, where's my power? Why did it disappear? Where did it go? I've become an ordinary dragon? No, that's not right. My power is even weaker than an ordinary dragon. It's like a newborn dragon. Where did my power go? At this moment, the captured dragons suddenly realized that their power had completely disappeared. They couldn't even use the slightest bit of power in their bodies. Only now did they feel panic. If they had only been caught, they could still think of a way to escape. However, if they didn't even have power, they would truly be useless dragons. Even if they returned to the dragon world, they would live a miserable life. Especially if they encountered a former enemy dragon, they would probably live a life worse than death. Shut up. What's there to be noisy about? Since you've entered the prison, your power has naturally been sealed. Anyway, stop making noise. Now that the Lord is here, all of you better be more attentive. Don't embarrass me. The black dragon Pausda shouted. Bush, bush, bush. At this moment, the Fey, crow demon bird, and other primordial species flew over and landed on the ground. All the dragons held their breath and looked at this group of arrogant primordial species. Pausda, you've done well. It seems that the prisoners that were escorted here today are quite obedient. They aren't as noisy as the previous batch. You've made a great contribution. The Fey stood with his hands behind his back, showing the demeanor of an official. Then we have to thank Lord Fey for your guidance. Without Lord Fey's divine might, how could these useless dragons be so obedient? The black dragon Pausda flattered the Fey skillfully. The faces of the dragons that knew the black dragon Pausda twitched. This black dragon Pausda used to be so high-spirited. His might dominated the dragon domain that spanned thousands of light years. All the dragons dared to be angry but didn't dare to say anything. Even the dragon god shrine couldn't do anything to him. But now, after a few lessons, he quickly changed his attitude and became a pug. Not bad. It seems that you know how to behave. Alright, from now on, you'll be the small leader of this place. You'll be responsible for managing these dragons. If there's any dragon that dares to cause trouble, immediately report it to me. The Fey nodded. Thank you, Lord Fey. Hearing this, the black dragon Pausda was overjoyed. He had become an official. Although his position was still lower than the Fey, it was much higher than these useless dragons. One could imagine that his treatment would also be improved a lot. Thinking of this, he wanted to work harder to manage these new dragons. If any of them dared to cause trouble, don't blame the black dragon Pausda for not showing mercy. Chapter 2469. In the blink of an eye, more than a month had passed. Xia Ping had been cultivating in peace. After such a long time, he had finally devoured all the energy and the time law of a time fruit and mastered it thoroughly. He discovered that his cultivation had also improved greatly and was much stronger than before. He reckoned that if he consumed another 5 or 6 time fruits and completely devoured all the energy, his cultivation would advance to the near ancient perfection realm. By then, he would be able to break through to the middle ancient realm and comprehend the time law. Yes, the test is finally over. At this moment, Xia Ping's heart thumped. He immediately sensed a huge wave of information coming from the depths of the invisible token. It seemed that all the dragons who had obtained the invisible token had completed the test. Evidently, the crazy competition for the invisible token in the outside world had also ended. Although he had not walked around in the outside world for more than a month, he knew how crazy the battle for the invisible token was. Every time the position of the invisible token's holder was exposed, it would lead to a frenzied massacre. Moreover, the invisible token's holders did not have invincible power like Xia Ping. Being surrounded by a dozen Middle Ancient dragons, they would immediately fall into a fatal crisis. If they did not want to die, they could only discard the invisible token on them. Even so, countless dragons had died fighting for the formless medallion. Should I enter the core cave abode? In an instant, Xia Ping sensed a gentle spatial energy coming from the invisible token, as if it wanted to teleport his entire body away from this place. However, after he left, he grabbed with his hand and immediately used Zhuang Zhou Dream Butterfly, causing Destiny Dragon Betty and Invisible Dragon Kalida to fall into a deep sleep. Then, he placed the 2 dragon whelps into the Mountain River Pearl's space and temporarily settled them down. After all, he was going to enter the core cave abode next. He did not know what would happen inside. If he left the 2 dragon whelps in the outer cave abode, they would be in danger. Therefore, he first placed the 2 dragon whelps into the Mountain River Pearl's space. That way, he would be absolutely safe. Even if he left the ruins, he would be able to bring them along. As for why he made the 2 dragon whelps faint, it was naturally because he could not let his secret be leaked. Boom! In an instant, the formless order transformed into a transparent spatial energy that wrapped around Xia Ping's body. The surrounding space distorted, and in an instant, he was teleported away from his original spot. At the same time, in the outer ruins, the holders of the formless medallions also felt the same power. All of them were overjoyed, knowing that they were finally going to enter the core cave abode. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Within a few breaths, all the dragons that had passed the test were teleported into a vast space. Xiaoping also appeared in this place. Master Potato. When Xiaoping appeared, all the eyes of the dragons were focused on him. The name Master Potato reverberated in their ears like thunder. This kid shone brilliantly in the ruins. He was obviously the first dragon to have an invisible token, but under the pursuit of countless dragons he was still safe and sound until now, which was enough to prove the strength of Master Potato. As the bearers of the formless tokens, they naturally knew how terrifying a being who could remain unscathed despite being chased by countless giant dragons and even kill other giant dragons. Even if this kid's current strength was only at the late near ancient stage, no dragon would dare to underestimate Master Potato. Vaguely, they all regarded Master Potato as their biggest competitor this time. Boom! Before they could say anything, suddenly, the void distorted in midair, and the phantom of formless Dragon Theodore once again appeared in midair, still emitting its arrogant voice. Congratulations, young dragons! You finally survived the slaughter of so many giant dragons and obtained the chance to obtain the ultimate treasure of me, the invisible Dragon Theodore. You've also proven that you have the strength and talent to go through such a battle. However, passing the test of the outer ruins is only the first step. If you fail the next test, then you will not get any treasure, and it will all be for naught. This is because this dragon believes in one thing, and that is that there is only one king in the universe. Therefore, there can only be one dragon who wants to obtain this dragon's treasure, and the other dragons are all failures. Hearing this, all the dragon's eyes revealed a fiery light. To be honest, formless Dragon Theodore's words just happened to be in line with their thoughts. Since there was such an amazing treasure, they naturally wanted to monopolize it. They were not children, and in the face of these treasures, they naturally wanted all of them. How could they be willing to share it with other dragons? Moreover, which dragon who had experienced such a tragic battle wasn't a proud son of heaven? Which one of them wasn't full of confidence? None of them thought that they would lose to other dragons. Of course, speaking of this, I believe you are also very curious about what this test is. Formless Dragon Theodore cackled. Don't worry, this test isn't for you to kill each other. In fact, it's very simple. I just want you to play a game together. This core cave residence is actually a labyrinth that this dragon painstakingly created, a spatial labyrinth. The space inside is layered with 9 twists and turns, containing 190 million origin worlds. The paths inside are simply so complicated that even divine sense can't penetrate any of the walls. At this point, he paused for a moment before continuing. Your mission is very simple, and that is to find the exit of this spatial labyrinth. There is only one such exit, and whoever finds it first will be the winner of this game and the final successor of me, Formless Dragon Theodore. Of course, I'm not very confident in your strength, and it's also possible that none of you will succeed or find the exit. In that case, none of you will be able to obtain my final legacy. If no dragon is able to complete this game, then this game will continue to be played until this dragon's true inheritor is selected. Spatial Labyrinth. Hearing this, the dragon's hearts skipped a beat. They didn't expect the final test to be so simple, and they just had to find the exit of the labyrinth to succeed. Kiki, do you think this test is that simple? Formless Dragon Theodore seemed to have seen through their thoughts. But let me tell you this. If you choose the wrong path, you will walk into a dead end. In that dead end, you will trigger the traps I left behind. You will either be buried by abyssal venom, sent to the interlayer of a spatial storm, incinerated by doomsday flames, or struck to death by lightning. In short, you need to be careful when you enter the labyrinth. It's basically a dead end, and there's only one way out. If you choose the wrong way, you'll die. Chapter 2470. What? The dragons gasped when they heard that. They thought that the labyrinth was safe, but now it seemed to be a maze of death that was many times more dangerous than the first round. As long as they entered and chose a path, they would definitely die. It was not as simple as a slim chance of survival, but a slim chance of survival. For a moment, they felt uneasy and did not know what to do. TSK Disket. Of course, if you want to leave now, you can teleport out of the core grotto mansion and leave safely. However, once you enter the maze, unless you find the only way out, you will die for sure. Even if you don't get killed by the traps, you will be trapped here until the successor appears. Theodore's silhouette continued to chuckle. Of course, if the successor never appears, the dragons in the labyrinth will remain trapped. He gave the dragons two choices. The first was to fight to the death, but it was a slim chance of survival. The second was to give up on the inheritance and leave this place. In fact, this was not necessarily a bad thing. At the very least, they had obtained many treasures in the outer ruins, which could be considered a huge harvest. Sometimes, retreating was not necessarily a bad thing. Giving up was also a form of courage. It was smart to know one's limitations. For a moment, the dragons were silent. Their eyes flickered as they fell into deep thought. This was a difficult choice. That was because the invisible dragon's treasure was too attractive. Once obtained, it was equivalent to obtaining a bright path to the invincible realm and becoming a dragon that could rival a country in the dragon realm. No matter what identity it had in the past or what bloodline it had, the moment it obtained the inheritance, it would definitely become a pinnacle dragon and one of the top existences in the dragon realm. Sigh, I give up. At this moment, a giant dragon stood up and said helplessly, I know my limits. This is a space maze built by a giant dragon that has reached the invincible realm. Even a giant dragon of the same level would have a headache if it were to come here. Moreover, I don't have a deep understanding of the law of space. If I enter, I'll probably be trapped until the end of time. There's no chance for me to find the only way out. In the outer ruins, I've obtained many treasures. To be honest, I've gained enough this time, so I don't need to continue risking my life to obtain this inheritance. That's why I choose to give up. Its expression was very calm, and it was obvious that it had made a decision. That's a smart choice. Only a dragon with self-awareness can live a long life. In that case, you should leave this place. The formless dragon Theodore waved its claw, and the dragon that had chosen to give up was teleported away. Following that, a few more giant dragons expressed that they had clearly given up on this competition. They were also self-aware and believed that it was impossible for them to pass through this mysterious space labyrinth. Hee, what a bunch of cowardly bandits. A great opportunity is right before your eyes, yet you don't even dare to fight for it. How laughable. Don't even tell others that you are from the dragon race. I fear that the other races will laugh at you. At this moment, a middle ancient dragon stood out and sneered without fear. If you don't fight for it, others will fight for it. If you don't fight for it, others will fight for it. If you don't fight for it, others will fight for it. This is the way of the world. If you don't move forward, you will fall behind. If you stay where you are, you will be left far behind by others. If you want to reach the peak, how can you do it without paying a price? Since you are afraid of death, don't come to the ruins. Anyway, I've lived enough in this life. There's no reason for me to let go of a chance to advance to the invincible realm. Another middle ancient dragon stood out as well. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen giant dragons expressed their desire to enter the labyrinth, choosing one of the paths and disappearing before the eyes of the other dragons. Kiki, not bad, not bad. It seems that there are some courageous dragons among the younger generation of the dragon race. The formless dragon Theodore cackled. He had remained neutral throughout, and it was his choice to give up or challenge. Even so, most of the giant dragons remained where they were, hesitating and not making a decision so quickly. It was as if they were observing what would happen after entering the labyrinth. Perhaps they could gain some experience from the experiences of the giant dragons who had entered the labyrinth. Interesting. Xia Ping stood among the dragons, saying nothing as well. Instead, he activated the Golden Crow's eyes of hell in an attempt to see through the space labyrinth created by the formless dragon Theodore. Under the vision of the Golden Crow's eyes of hell, the structure of the labyrinth was revealed to him. Just looking at the entrances alone, he discovered that there were more than 10 million of them. Each of the spatial entrances seemed to lead to a different area and into a different spatial world. Some of these spatial worlds were dangerous enough to destroy a saint, while others were safer. If one was unlucky, they would fall into a dangerous spatial world. In fact, this entrance was just the beginning. After entering, there would be many more forks in space, and there were thousands or even tens of thousands of them. Only one of them was safe. If one made the wrong choice, they would immediately fall into a trap and die. There were as many as 1,000,000 similar forks in the labyrinth. Moreover, there was no pattern to these forks, and they were all messy and changing at every moment. Sometimes, it would be one in 1 second and another in the next. To find a truly safe spatial path, one must be extremely proficient in the laws of space, and sometimes a little bit of luck as well. Could it be that this fellow is choosing a dragon that's proficient in the laws of space as its successor? Does it also want to choose an invisible dragon as its successor? Xia Ping stroked his chin as he pondered over Theodore's thoughts. As a matter of fact, it was not impossible. As an invisible dragon, Theodore naturally had a good impression of other invisible dragons of the same race, and it was normal for him to choose an invisible dragon as his successor. Moreover, one's comprehension of the laws of space had to reach an extremely profound level in order to pass through the space labyrinth, or one would not be able to find a safe passage. But no matter what Theodore was thinking, this space labyrinth could not stump him at all with the Golden Crow's eyes of hell, and all spatial traps could not escape his eyes. With that thought, he did not hesitate and immediately flew into the labyrinth. Master Matato has set off. The many dragons immediately saw the famous Master Matato enter the space labyrinth. They knew that he might not give up, but they did not expect him to make a decision so quickly. Chapter 2471. This Master Matato is really bold, isn't he afraid of death? This is the space maze built by the invincible dragon Theodore. The purpose is to choose the true successor. How can it be so easy to pass through? Who knows, maybe this Master Matato has a trump card. Oh, a trump card? Which dragon here doesn't have a trump card? That's true, but the dragons who can pass the test are far more powerful than the dragons of the same rank, proud and arrogant, and think that they can do it. It's a pity, if this Master Matato dies in the space maze, then won't his red blood dragon divine grass, enlightenment flower, and other holy medicines be lost in the maze? If so, then it's really a reckless waste of God's gifts. Many dragons were talking about it. They did not expect that this Master Matato would really have the courage to risk his life to enter the maze. They were also a little worried. If this Master Matato died in the maze, they were afraid that he would never be able to bring out his holy medicines, which would be a great waste. But no matter what, they couldn't stop him. Easy, it's too easy. Xia Ping put on the primordial magic treasure formless mask, hid his breath, and changed into the appearance of the invisible dragon. It seemed that at this moment he had become the son of space. He could easily perceive any space fluctuation, and could easily integrate into the void. Coupled with the power of the formless mask, it was estimated that even a saint who had reached the invincible realm would not be able to perceive his existence. At the same time, he also operated his Hell Golden Crow's eyes, understanding all the mysteries of this space maze. Even if a space fork appeared, it could not stop his action. His figure flashed, and he fell over, choosing the only safe space passage. Even the invisible dragon of the primordial realm could not have such a fast speed. He felt that this space labyrinth was created just for him. But the other dragons were not so lucky. Although they dared to enter the space maze, they also had a considerable degree of confidence in themselves. But the problem was that the space traps built by the invisible dragon Theodore were really beyond their imagination. Every time, the number of spatial forks that appeared was frightening and dazzling. Moreover, there were also many seemingly right but actually wrong spatial traps. If one were to accidentally walk into one, they would either die or be injured. Some of the giant dragons accidentally took a wrong spatial path and immediately fell into a dark prison. Everywhere was filled with dark elements, like chaos. They couldn't break free, couldn't think, couldn't breathe, and seemed to be imprisoned in this place forever. Some dragons confidently chose one of the directions, but they ended up entering a fiery hell. This place burned with eternal and inextinguishable holy flames, which even dragon flames couldn't compare to. Even with the strength of an ancient Middle Realm cultivator, There was no way they could withstand the otherworldly flame. Within a few breaths of time, they would be burned to ashes. They wouldn't even have the time to use their magical treasures. Some of the dragons were very careful, but they still chose the wrong path. They fell into a world of ice and snow, and everywhere was filled with bone-chilling winds. In just an instant, the dragon's body was frozen, and even its soul was frozen. All that was left on the ground was a lifelike ice sculpture. Apart from that, many of the giant dragons that entered the spatial maze also met a tragic end, dying in various ways. At this time, at the end of the maze, there was a luxurious palace filled with treasures. A gigantic specter suddenly appeared on a tall throne, its body emanating a terrifying aura that could freeze time and space. If any other dragon were to enter this place, they would definitely be able to recognize the specter as the formless dragon Theodore. How fools! What a bunch of fools! At this moment, Theodore was sitting on the throne. Through the restrictive formation, he could easily see everything that was going on in the spatial maze. Not a single trace of a dragon could hide from him. These foolish juniors really think that I'm so kind as to hand over all my treasures. All of them belong to me, and no one can take them away. He was smug. If the dragons in the outside world saw this, they would definitely be shocked that the infamous formless dragon Theodore was still alive. In reality, Theodore had indeed heavily injured the formless dragon in the ancient war against the abyssal demons. No life could escape from a war that swept across the entire universe. Even the cunning and cowardly formless dragon Theodore was unable to escape. He was forced to participate in the war in the end and was heavily injured by a few abyssal demon kings, causing his soul to collapse. As a result, Theodore used his last breath to flee from the battlefield in a hurry. He returned to his lair in the dragon's realm in hopes of finding a way to save himself. Unfortunately, his wounds were just too heavy. Even after expending a tremendous amount of energy and countless treasures, he was unable to stop the gradual descent into death. Fortunately, he possessed a saint medicine he had obtained from the forbidden zone of darkness, the undying soul fruit. The fruit only had a single effect, which was to turn living beings into specters after death. No matter how heavily injured they were when they were still alive, they could be revived rapidly after ingesting it and become an undying specter. Originally, he did not want to turn into a specter if he had a choice, but he had no other choice in order to survive, so he could only ingest the fruit. And the result was also very smooth. At the moment of its death, all the curse, darkness, weakening, and karma power quickly disappeared, and its soul, under the power of the undying nether spirit fruit, was quickly reborn, turning into an undying spirit. The problem was that the fruit had a very great side effect. Once he became a specter, he would lose all of his power and could not cultivate anymore. He could only become an eternal existence like this until the end of time. Once he was discovered, he would probably be enslaved by others and suffer a miserable fate. Without strength, he would be like a fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. However, Theodore had already thought of a second method to escape this predicament, which was to take over a dragon's body. He would use the power of an undying specter to take over the body of a dragon. That way, he would be able to revive in this world and continue to grow stronger. However, if he wanted to take over a dragon's body, it would not work if the body and soul were too powerful, or it would not work if the body was too weak, or the body would not be able to contain his soul. An invincible dragon would explode on the spot. After much thought, Theodore set up various laws in his dwelling to prevent dragons greater than ancient dragons from entering. Moreover, in order to select the soul of an invisible dragon that was suitable for it and select a dragon with extraordinary talent, it had also set up various conditions. Any dragon that could pass the screening was basically a veteran of hundreds of battles, had extraordinary talent, and had a powerful physical body. Chapter 2472. Kaka. This dragon isn't bad. It has a strong physique and can definitely withstand my soul. However, its talent isn't that great, and it's not worthy of my great invisible dragon. The invisible dragon Theodore pointed. That reflective dragon seems alright as well. It seems to be a special dragon with top-notch abilities that can reflect all energy and physical attacks. However, it's too ugly and affects my great image. That transparent dragon isn't bad. It has the special ability to be transparent, similar to my invisible dragon, but its combat ability is too weak. It's only suitable for sneak attacks, but its life-saving abilities are top-notch. It can be used as a backup dragon. It watched as the dragons entered the maze one after another, carefully selecting the ones that could carry its body. The reason it had set up so many traps in the maze was so that the dragons would fall into a state of near death so that they would have no power to resist its possession. To be honest, it did not intend to let any giant dragon pass its labyrinth test. The entire labyrinth was under its control, even if a dragon could really pass the labyrinth. Even if there were dragons that could pass it could still manipulate the restrictions of the maze to blast the other party to death or grievously injure them. In short, everything was under the control of the great invisible dragon Theodore. The final victor of this universe is still me, the great Theodore. The invisible dragon cackled, revealing a treacherous expression. Boom! Just then, as the invisible dragon Theodore was carefully selecting the dragons on the screen, the palace doors were suddenly forced open and a figure flew in. It was none other than Xia Ping, who had easily passed the maze test. The invisible dragon Theodore was dumbfounded. It stared blankly at Xia Ping, who had suddenly barged in, unable to say anything as if its brain had gone haywire. It would never have imagined that such a dragon would appear at such a critical moment. To be honest, Xia Ping was also shocked at the moment. He did not expect a silly phantom dragon to appear at the end of the maze, and was even sitting on a strange chair. After all, shouldn't this palace be Theodore's lair? There should be no one here. Could it be that there was a dragon faster than him, beating him to the punch? If that was the case, wouldn't it mean that all his efforts were in vain? One dragon and one human, they just stared at each other, seemingly unable to say anything. It was quiet for a long time. In the end, it was Xia Ping who broke the silence. Is this the palace of the formless dragon Theodore? Yes, yes. Theodore answered instinctively. But halfway through his answer, he realized that something was amiss and yelled. "Oh, how did you barge in?" It was simply insane. According to its estimation, no dragon should be able to pass its labyrinth test. Moreover, under its constant monitoring, even if there really was a dragon with such an ability, it would be immediately discovered and killed in the cradle. But what was going on? The trial had not even started for a long time. How could this dragon pass through the labyrinth that he had painstakingly created without making a sound? That didn't make sense. Even if this brat really had such an ability, it was impossible for him to escape from its senses under its surveillance. But what was going on now? But how could the formless dragon Theodore know that there was a primordial magic treasure in this universe called the Faceless Mask that could change one's form and conceal one's aura? With such an ability, even a saint who had reached the invincible realm would not be able to detect it. Not to mention that Theodore, who had turned into a phantom dragon, had lost too much of its strength. Faced with Xia Ping's speed and ability, it could not detect anything at all. Therefore, unknowingly, Xia Ping easily passed the test and arrived at the end of the labyrinth, the palace of the invisible dragon. Did I just walk in like that? Now that I've passed the test, can I obtain the treasures and inheritance of the formless dragon? Xia Ping asked. Pass the test, my ass. You're cheating, do you know that? Get out of this place right now. The treasures of the formless dragon aren't something a weak dragon like you can lay a finger on. How could the formless dragon Theodore tolerate the fact that the evil dragon wanted his treasures? He immediately cursed and wanted to drive the kid out. What a joke! Everything in this treasure belonged to him, and no one could take it away. A little phantom dragon dares to be so arrogant with me? Be a good boy and get lost. Xia Ping cast a sidelong glance at it. Why would he care about the threat of the little phantom dragon? He immediately attacked. Hell's magical power, soul-binding chain. This was one of the Hell's magical powers that he had obtained after killing some nether ghosts and demons in the Hell plane. It had a great restraining effect on souls. In the blink of an eye, a black chain condensed from the power of Hell appeared. Each chain was engraved with hellish characters and emitted an unfathomable aura that could lock one's soul. Any soul would have nowhere to hide in the face of this chain. In just an instant, the specter dragon did not know what had happened. The soul-binding chain immediately rushed over and pierced through the specter dragon's body, binding it tightly and making it unable to move. Even all of the phantom dragon's power was sealed by the soul-binding chain, and it could no longer run rampant. Damn junior dragon, you dare treat the mighty formless dragon Theodore like this? You're dead, you're dead. Do you understand? The phantom dragon immediately screamed. How could it have imagined that the kid would act so quickly? It didn't even have the chance to activate the restriction formation and kill the kid. But in just an instant, it was completely controlled and sealed. The soul-binding chain even emitted electric currents from time to time, making it feel numb all over as if it was being tortured. Although it wouldn't die for now, the pain was unbearable. Formless dragon Theodore? Interesting. You're not dead, but have become a phantom dragon? Xia Ping's eyes lit up when he heard this. He felt like he had discovered some great secret. No, you heard wrong, you heard wrong. How could I be Theodore? He died countless epochs ago. The phantom dragon Theodore immediately became vigilant. It laughed awkwardly and repeatedly denied it. If this junior dragon found out that it was the formless dragon Theodore, then it would be completely finished. But these words were basically a lie. How could Xia Ping believe such nonsense? He immediately used the soul-binding chain to interrogate it. Chapter 2473. Xia Ping tortured the specter dragon for 2 hours. Although the specter dragon was reluctant to admit its identity at first, it could not withstand the torture and could only admit that it was Theodore the formless dragon. Moreover, it had no choice but to reveal the true purpose of the assessment. Interesting. You want to possess another dragon just by relying on your specter dragon? Xia Ping gave it a sidelong glance. What kind of look is that? How dare a little junior like you speak to the great invisible dragon Theodore like that? Do you know that I could kill hundreds of you with one finger when I was at my peak? The invisible dragon Theodore bristled at those words. Such a look was looking down on dragons. After all, it was once one of the top beings in the universe. Although it was a little timid, its strength was not for show. Judging by your appearance, I don't think you got there through hard work, but by taking pills. You're completely fake. Xia Ping said disdainfully. How do you know? The invisible dragon Theodore was shocked. It was true. Based on its temperament and strength, it should not have been able to reach the invincible realm and comprehend the laws of life and death. However, it was an invisible dragon with great luck, able to enter and exit all kinds of dangerous situations at any time. During one of its adventures in the dark forbidden zone, it actually found a precious divine medicine. After taking it, it naturally advanced to the invincible realm and comprehended the laws of life and death. The problem was that the strength it gained through taking pills made it the lowest existence among the invincible realm saints. Only its ability to escape was top-notch, but its combat strength could not keep up. Even so, it could easily crush all dragons under the invincible realm. Therefore, in the war, it specialized in bullying those whose realm was lower than its own. Unexpectedly, at the critical moment, when the real battle came, it could no longer play tricks, and its true strength was revealed. I can see the essence of life at a glance. From the first time I met you, I knew you were a complete loser. Xia Ping stood with his hands behind his back. You! The invisible dragon Theodore was so angry that his face turned green. He wanted to strangle the bastard. All right, enough with the nonsense. Tell me how to control this palace. With a single glance, Xia Ping could tell that the invisible dragon's palace was a sacred artifact. Moreover, it was a peerless sacred artifact, a priceless treasure. If he could control this palace, it would be equivalent to completely controlling the invisible dragon's core immortal cave. In fact, the reason why the invisible dragon Theodore was able to flee so quickly on the battlefield back then was because of this supreme quality saint artifact, the Formless Hull. It was equivalent to many years of hard work. the Invisible Palace was a flying spatial magic treasure. It often used the Invisible Palace to travel around and explore all kinds of secret realms. It could travel through space at will and penetrate all kinds of restrictive arrays. Furthermore, its defensive abilities were also extremely powerful. It could resist soul attacks and physical attacks, and it could weaken them by more than 90%. Even if it encountered the attack of an invincible realm saint, it could resist for a long time. Moreover, if the situation was not good, it could escape at any time, merging into the depths of the void, making it impossible for others to catch it. It could be said that the invisible dragon had simply forged the palace into a tortoise shell. It was hundreds of times more powerful than the stars on Xia Ping's body. It was a true life-saving artifact. Dream on, you must be dreaming. This is the palace of the great invisible dragon Theodore, the formless hall. How could it be controlled by a despicable junior dragon like you? You must be dreaming. The invisible dragon Theodore bared his fangs and brandished his claws. This was his life's savings, and it was not enough to describe the treasures stored here. How could he be willing to let it go? Not to mention the treasures in the palace, just the peerless sacred artifact, the formless hall, was a priceless treasure. If it was released to the outside world, who knew how many holy dragons would fight to the death for it? Even invincible realm dragons would not care about their pride and personally try to snatch it. Is that so? Xia Ping gave him a sidelong glance. Crackle, crackle, but before the invisible dragon could say anything, Xia Ping gently waved his hand, triggering the punishment power of the soul-binding chain. In an instant, the invisible dragon Theodore cried out in pain. Master, I was wrong. The formless hall belongs to you. After being electrocuted, the invisible dragon Theodore knew what to do. He immediately expressed his willingness to cooperate and hand over the method to refine the formless hall. It showed the look of a loyal pug. After all, he had no choice but to lower his head when under the eaves. He was no longer the famous invisible dragon Theodore, but a mere resurrected useless phantom dragon. How could he be a match for this hateful junior dragon? If he continued to resist stubbornly, he would probably be punished miserably. Hateful junior dragon, just you wait. I'll let you be complacent for now. When I find a chance to get rid of you, I'll definitely get my revenge. Just you wait. The invisible dragon Theodore gnashed his teeth. He wanted nothing more than to capture this hateful fellow and give him a good beating. He decided that he would kill this fellow once he recovered his strength. No, he couldn't kill him. He couldn't let him off so easily. He should imprison him and make him work all day as his servant. He could beat and scold him whenever he wanted. Not bad. Xia Ping was very satisfied when he heard that Theodore had handed over the method to refine the peerless saint artifact Formless Hall. He knew that the method was genuine. This fellow was very sensible and didn't lie. With that thought in mind, he walked up to the dragon throne that Theodore had been sitting on. This throne was the core formation of the palace, and as long as he could refine it, the control of the palace would belong to him. Boom! His immense magic energy and powerful consciousness immediately seeped into the throne, completely expelling the spiritual imprint left behind by the invisible dragon Theodore. If it was still the spiritual imprint left behind by the invincible dragon Theodore, he naturally wouldn't be able to expel it so easily. The problem was that the invisible dragon Theodore had died a long time ago and had only come back to life with the undying nether soul fruit. Therefore, the original spiritual imprint had long since collapsed. The one refining the palace was only the spectral dragon Theodore, and the spiritual imprint left behind by the spectral dragon Theodore was too weak. In fact, it was even weaker than a sempiternal realm dragon. That was also why he could easily expel the spiritual imprint and replace it with his own. Whoosh! In an instant, Xia Ping sensed that his soul had permeated the entire formless hall and gained control over all of the palace's formations. He felt as if he had reached the realm of becoming one with the artifact, and he knew the artifact like the back of his hand. Chapter 2474. I see. After refining the formless palace, Xia Ping immediately understood the peerless saint artifact like the back of his hand. He could sense that the peerless saint artifact had a total of 3 abilities. The first was dimensional escape. In times of emergency, it could instantly flee into another dimension and traverse across 3,000 worlds. No laws could restrain it, allowing it to move extremely quickly. The second was void concealment. It could conceal one's presence and stay in the void of space. In this state, no living being would be able to discover the existence of the formless palace. Of course, it could not attack others either, or it would immediately be exposed. The third was space-time defense. It could weaken an enemy's attacks to the greatest extent. Be it physical or soul attacks, anything that did not exceed the limits of the formless palace's defenses would be completely immune. Even if it exceeded the formless palace's defenses, it could weaken over 90% of the enemy's attacks. The palace could be described as a tortoise's shell, a war fortress that would never fall. Apart from that, the formless palace had no other abilities. Xia Ping was completely impressed by the invisible dragon Theodore after looking through these abilities. The word fear of death was used to the extreme. Every single ability of the Peerless Saint artifact was for escape and survival. It could be said that the formless palace had no other powers apart from its ability to protect itself. It was a powerful saint artifact forged after sacrificing its offensive capabilities. It was the pinnacle of defense. However, it had to be said that it was precisely because of this that it became one of the saints with the greatest ability to protect itself in the universe. There were not many saints who could kill it. Even with that being the case, there was basically no place in the universe that was safe in a war that involved the entire universe. It would still be hard for it to escape death. Even if it could just barely survive with the treasures it obtained from the forbidden zone of darkness, it would only turn it into an undying specter, forever trapped in that state. However, this Peerless Saint artifact had completely benefited Xia Ping. With this Peerless Saint artifact, his defense would be so powerful that it would make one's hair stand on end. There probably wouldn't be many saints who could kill him if he went out with it. However, the artifact spirit of this Peerless Saint artifact seems to have been destroyed. Xia Ping squinted his eyes. He had originally wanted to communicate with the artifact spirit of the Peerless Saint artifact, but he discovered that the artifact spirit had already become an empty shell. It was as if during the War of the Primordial Era, even though the invisible dragon Theodore had fled for his life, the shockwaves still managed to kill the artifact spirit of the invisible palace, causing its soul to perish. If that wasn't the case, it wouldn't have been so easy for him to refine this supreme grade saint weapon. Looks like there are only two ways to make this supreme quality saint artifact recover to its peak condition. The first is to nurture a new artifact spirit, but this method will require a large amount of time and effort. It won't be effective in a short period of time. Xia Ping rubbed his chin. The second method is to find another weapon spirit and fuse it into this supreme grade sacred weapon, completely replacing it. To tell the truth, he felt that the second method was very feasible, and he just happened to have such a tool spirit by his side, Corinne. Corinne, as one of the top brains in the universe, after years of training, is actually no different from a tool spirit. Moreover, if Corinne becomes the Invisible Palace's artifact spirit, Corinne's life level will also increase, and he can rest assured to hand over the Invisible Palace to him. Corinne. Thinking of this, he immediately told his idea to Corinne, wanting to see what it thinks. If Corinne doesn't want to, he won't force it. What did you say? I have the opportunity to become the tool spirit of a supreme grade saint weapon, and you're asking me whether I want to or not. Isn't this nonsense? You want a beggar to be the emperor, let's see whether he is willing or not. After hearing these words, Corinne immediately became excited, extremely excited, because for it, this was simply an eternal opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Although it is the top brain in the universe, but even so, it is still at the bottom of the universe, because it has no way to grasp any power, it only has auxiliary ability, nothing more. It is only suitable to be a ghost in the virtual network, and outside the network world, anyone can bully it. But now it is different. If it can become the tool spirit of a supreme grade saint weapon, it would simply be like changing a bird gun to a cannon, instantly grasping the top power in the universe. This is equivalent to standing at the peak of all magic weapons, which idiot would be willing to refuse? Damn it! Hearing this, Azure Ox gnashed its teeth in anger, extremely jealous. It had gone through untold hardships and spent God knows how many resources to upgrade its magic weapon to the level of a high-grade saint weapon, and upgrading it to a supreme-grade saint weapon was still a long way off in the foreseeable future. But now, this idiot Corinne, without doing anything, unexpectedly became the tool spirit of a supreme-grade saint weapon. If this isn't dog shit luck, then what is it? This is too enviable. However, it also knows that it is not suitable to become the tool spirit of the invisible palace. After all, it is already the tool spirit of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers, and has long since fused with this magic weapon, deeply rooted, and difficult to get rid of. Since you are willing, that is for the best. Hearing this, Xia Ping immediately felt relieved, and without any hesitation he grabbed Corinne's soul with his big hand, formed a seal with both hands, and integrated it into the core restriction array of the invisible palace. Rumble, in an instant, Corinne's soul integrated into the core of the invisible palace. As the top AI in the universe, its computing ability can be said to be first class. It sensed countless law information transmitted from the depths of the invisible palace, just like a torrent. Even as the top AI in the universe, it was almost unable to handle this huge flow of information and was on the verge of crashing. But with Xia Ping's help, it instantly controlled the power of the invisible palace, allowing Corinne to slowly grasp all the power of laws inside the supreme-grade saint weapon. After half an hour, Corinne finally woke up, and his pair of cat eyes emitted a frightening radiance, seemingly flowing with countless law information, and indistinctly, countless law chains entangled with each other, brewing in the depths of his pupils. "How is it?" Xia Ping curiously asked. "Very good, I feel better than ever." "Is this the feeling of having power?" Corinne was very excited. "I have already grasped the initial control of this supreme-grade saint weapon, and can also mobilize a part of the space-time power. However, it will still take a long time to completely grasp this supreme-grade saint weapon, but it is only a matter of time." It felt that this was an unprecedented, wonderful feeling, coming out of the virtual world and coming to the real world, grasping the top power of laws in the universe, and each and every one of its movements was like that of a creator. It seemed that at this moment, it had obtained a new life, evolving from a virtual character into a living being with a corporeal body. Chapter 2475. It's over, it's all over, it's all over. The formless dragon Theodore's face turned green at the sight of this. He was furious. He had left behind a trap in the restrictive formation inside the invisible palace so that he could catch this shameless bastard off guard after he recovered his strength. However, he did not expect this kid to create an artifact spirit out of thin air and completely control and replace his natal artifact, the invisible palace. This way, the little tricks he left behind in the invisible palace would be useless. As long as the artifact spirit took complete control of the invisible palace, his trump card would definitely be exposed. He regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. He had worked so hard for so long only to end up benefiting someone else. He could not accept this. Xia Ping, there are a lot of treasures stored in this palace. We've hit the jackpot. Corinne mischievously laughed, feeling very proud of himself. Oh, what treasures are stored? Xia Ping naturally knew that this place was Invisible Dragon Theodore's lair and core cave residence, so it was only natural that a lot of treasures were stored here. I'll transmit the information inside to your Sea of Consciousness, and you'll know what treasures are stored in this place. Corinne immediately transmitted a message to Xia Ping's Sea of Consciousness. Whoosh! In an instant, many images appeared in Xia Ping's Sea of Consciousness, and the situation inside the invisible palace's treasure vault was completely displayed in front of him. Oh my God, sound stone. There are so many sound stone in this place. First, he noticed a large number of sound stones stored in a warehouse. There were so many of them that they could not be measured in kilograms, but in tons. There were at least 1,000 tons stored in a warehouse alone. Such a number would be terrifying if it was made known to others. He remembered that when he tried to exchange for some sound stone in the Holy Land of Taichu, he had to spend a lot of points and put in a lot of effort just to obtain a few sound stone. But now, there were more than 1,000 tons stored in this warehouse alone. He did not know how long it would take to use them all. He felt that he could use these sound stones to upgrade his Bell of Chaos to a peerless sacred artifact. He would not need to look for more sound stones after that. No, it's not just sound stone. There are also many other precious ores, such as purple gold meteoric iron, duck flame stone, purple third iron, Tai gold, mysterious ice soul, ninth heaven cold steel, and so on. Xia Ping's eyes widened. No wonder Corinne said that he had made a fortune. Every single ore here was a cosmic treasure. Even a kilogram was priceless and couldn't be bought outside. These ores were basically all rare materials for forging peerless saint artifacts. If news of this were to spread, it would be enough to drive every saint crazy. Even invincible saints would try to snatch them. Not only are there precious ores here, there are also many top-notch sacred herbs planted here. The green ox also received the information transmitted by Corinne. He paid special attention to those top-notch sacred medicines. After seeing a sacred medicine, he couldn't help but shiver. This is 7 orifices exquisite flower. My mother, this is a peerless sacred medicine between heaven and earth. After taking it, even a waste can obtain 7 orifices exquisite body, becoming one of the few powerful physiques between heaven and earth, becoming a top genius in the universe. With this 7 orifices exquisite body, you'll be able to pick up anything you want to learn in a short while, and you'll be able to deduce many things from one instance. You can be said to have an innate Tao body, and you'll be able to comprehend the laws of the universe several times faster than other life forms. What is this? Xia Ping pointed at a black fruit that was the size of a fist and had spiral patterns on its surface. It gave off an ominous aura, and if one looked at it for too long, they would feel as if their souls would be devoured. It was unfathomably deep. He felt that this fruit was not simple, but he could not recognize it. What is it? Oh my God, this is the misfortune divine fruit, one of the peerless divine medicines. It is said that it can only be produced in the forbidden dark areas. I'm afraid it is even more precious than the enlightenment flower. The green ox's heart was already twitching non-stop. He said while trembling, it said that after consuming this fruit, there's a chance to successfully cultivate the misfortune battle physique. Once you succeed, you'll be able to naturally control the power of misfortune. Anyone who approaches you and is full of malice and hostility toward you will encounter different degrees of misfortune and misfortune. They will encounter all kinds of accidents, leading to serious injuries and death. Moreover, the more serious the malice, the heavier the misfortune. If it's serious, this misfortune will also involve the descendants within 3 generations. Everyone will encounter different degrees of misfortune, and sometimes even the extinction of 3 generations is possible. It's simply a lone star walking in the universe. You don't even need to do anything. Those who harbor malice will automatically die. It indicated that such a sage had once appeared in the universe. He was known as the Misfortune Sage. He had consumed the misfortune divine fruit. Wherever he went, all the races in the universe would avoid him. He could be called a human-shaped disaster. Not bad, not bad. Xia Ping touched his chin. Although this misfortune divine fruit didn't have much effect on him, if he gave birth to a descendant, he could let him consume it. At that time, perhaps a disaster would appear in the universe. Oh, what's that? He also saw a strange black flower that seemed to contain an unfathomable power of darkness. Skeletons seemed to appear on every petal. Vaguely, it also contained the power of the laws of darkness. Master, this is the origin demon flower. The green ox was already numb from the shock. This is also a peerless sacred herb. It's priceless, a cosmic flower that only appears once every 10 million epochs. If someone consumes this origin demon flower, they'll be able to quickly cultivate the origin demon body. This is one of the most powerful constitutions in the universe. It's innately compatible with the power of the demonic path and the power of darkness. The more they fight, the stronger they become. They're known as the ancestors of the demonic path. He didn't even know what he should say. Although he knew that there were countless treasures in the core cave abode, and that it was the life savings of an invincible sage, he didn't expect it to be this exaggerated. Any random sage herb he took out was the kind that could shock the universe. Just how many treasures did the invisible dragon Theodore loot? Back then, the invisible dragon had probably relied on its innate ability and the peerless sacred artifact, the formless palace, to enter into countless precious and strange places and steal from the treasuries of countless sages to accumulate so many treasures. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the invisible dragon was one of the richest sages in the universe. The wealth of its previous master, the mountain river sage, was nothing compared to Theodore's. Chapter 2476. Xia Ping, Corinne, and the Green Ox were all very excited after going through the treasures in the invisible palace. Although the invisible dragon Theodore had used many sacred medicines and elixirs to heal his injuries, he still left behind many treasures in the invisible palace. Any one of them could cause great waves in the outside world and even start a war. What's this? Finally, Xia Ping discovered a transparent pearl the size of a basketball on the ground near the dragon throne. The pearl exuded a rich spatial aura, and with a boom, he sensed that the pearl was all-encompassing, as if it contained the entire world and the complete laws of the universe. He sensed that the interior of the pearl was boundless and larger than the space of the pearl of mountains and rivers. It also contained an extremely rich dragon origin aura that was unfathomably deep. A dragon core. Thinking of this, Xia Ping's eyes lit up. He immediately remembered what this bead was. It must be the dragon core left behind by the dragon sages after they died. He had killed some giant dragons in the past, and they had also left behind dragon cores after they died. However, the world tree had directly devoured them and refined them into fruits before turning them into ashes. The energy contained in the transparent pearl was many times more powerful than any dragon core he had seen before, and the gap between the two couldn't be measured by distance. He was certain that the transparent bead was the dragon core left behind by the invisible dragon Theodore after his death. Although the invisible dragon Theodore had turned into a phantom dragon, it was only a transformation of his soul. His physical body was completely dead, rotting and disintegrating, leaving behind only a dragon core. What a treasure! Xia Ping clenched his fists. This was a dragon core left behind by a holy dragon that had reached the invincible realm. Although the invisible dragon Theodore was a fake, it was still a life form that had once reached the invincible realm. Such a life form had surpassed everything and stood at the pinnacle of the universe. The dragon core left behind by such a life form's life essence was unimaginable in terms of value. Damn it, that shameless thief. The invisible dragon Theodore regretted his actions so much that his intestines turned green. Why did he have to participate in a trial for no reason? He should have killed these dragons as soon as he entered and put an end to all troubles. Now, this shameless bastard had entered his palace and plundered all the treasures that belonged to him, even taking away the dragon core he had left behind after his death. It felt as if it had become a pauper, penniless and miserable. Now, it could slightly understand the feelings of those sages whose treasures had been stolen by it in the past. This kind of feeling was simply fucked up and could not be described with words. Could it be that this was retribution? He had done so many bad things that the heavens sent this bastard to take away the treasures that he had painstakingly accumulated over the years. Master, I've struck gold. I've struck gold. I can sense that this dragon core is extremely beneficial to me. If I completely devour and fuse with it, I'll obtain the complete laws of the universe within this dragon core, and the orb of mountains and rivers will immediately undergo a world-shaking transformation. The Black Ox was so excited that he was incoherent. Originally, the difficulty of upgrading the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers to a peerless saint artifact was no less than that of upgrading from a primeval saint to an invincible saint. In fact, it might even be more difficult. He felt that even if he wanted to upgrade it, it would take him many years to do so. In fact, it might not even be possible in his lifetime. However, things were different now. The dragon core left behind by the invisible dragon Theodore contained the complete laws of the universe as well as rich origin energy. Furthermore, it was of the spatial attribute. It could be said that this dragon core and the pearl of mountains and rivers were extremely compatible. They were practically a match made in heaven. To be honest, the Black Ox felt that this was an eternally fortuitous encounter. After all, invincible dragons were extremely rare in the first place. They were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns in the entire universe. Furthermore, the other party was a supreme ruler who had comprehended the laws of space, and he had coincidentally left behind such a precious dragon core. If this wasn't an eternally fortuitous encounter, then what was? There was no way he could obtain such a supreme treasure anywhere else. Something like that happened? In that case, this dragon core belongs to you. Xia Ping's heart skipped a beat. He didn't think that the dragon core would be so useful to the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers. It could actually upgrade the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers to a peerless saint artifact. However, if the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers could be upgraded to a peerless saint artifact, the benefits it would bring him would naturally be endless. After all, the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers could be considered his home now. As such, the more powerful his home was, the better. Thank you, Master. However, I'm afraid I'll need your help later to completely refine this dragon core and fuse it into the space of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers. The Black Ox couldn't wait any longer. He immediately grabbed the dragon core and placed it into the space of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers. He then formed a seal with both hands and devoured the dragon core. That's naturally not a problem. Xia Ping nodded. He immediately immersed his mind into the space of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers and reached the realm of being one with the artifact. It was as if the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers had become a part of his body. He could sense every corner of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers, as well as every restriction and formation. He formed a seal with both hands and circulated the tremendous power in his body. The 9 purple palace spaces trembled as they immediately poured into the depths of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers. Whoosh, in the blink of an eye, the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers that had received Xia Ping's help was immediately injected with adrenaline. A vast world of flames immediately surged out from the depths of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers. It seemed to have transformed into a dimension of fire as the Hellfire Golden Crow burned fiercely. The dragon core that came from the invisible dragon Theodore was currently being burned by the Hellfire Golden Crow. Normally, a dragon core like this would be very difficult to destroy. It was as sturdy as a peerless saint artifact. However, under the scorching heat of the Hellfire Golden Crow, the dragon core still melted at a speed visible to the naked eye and was converted into a vast amount of origin energy. The surroundings were also exuding a rich dragon origin aura. Every drop of liquid seemed to not only contain rich origin energy, but also a universal law. There was nothing in this universe that the Hellfire Golden Crow couldn't melt. There was no way the Black Ox would let this opportunity slip by. He rushed up excitedly and bit down on the dragon core, devouring all of the dragon core's origin energy. Immediately, the Black Ox felt that its body had undergone a tremendous change. Vast amounts of universal law information surged into its sea of consciousness as if it was communicating with the universe's origin. At this moment, it seemed to have obtained all of the invisible dragon Theodore's comprehension of the laws. It seemed to have received all of the invisible dragon Theodore's inheritance and enlightenment. The Pearl of Mountains and Rivers also underwent a complete transformation. Chapter 2477. First, it was the laws of the universe inside the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers. After obtaining all the information of the laws of the universe from the invisible dragon Theodore's dragon core, the laws of the world inside the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers were immediately perfected. Countless laws of the universe filled in and perfected the laws of the universe. This was also the first step for a superior grade saint artifact to become a supreme grade saint artifact. Universe laws emerged from within the bead of mountains and rivers. There were a total of 3,000 universe laws. Each universe law was like a giant dragon. The 3,000 dragons wrapped around the entire bead of mountains and rivers like chains of order. They intertwined with each other and formed a part of the bead of mountains and rivers. Immediately, the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers underwent a huge transformation. Originally, it was just a broken world, but now it was different. It immediately transformed into a complete world, endlessly growing and devouring the energy of the origin of the universe, forming a complete cycle. And this transformation was just the beginning. After making up for all the laws of the universe in the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers, the huge amount of dragon origin energy inside the dragon core was also released. This was the energy essence of a saint who had once reached the invincible realm. Even though a lot of this energy essence had been lost because of the great battle, the energy inside the dragon core was still quite frightening. The energy of dozens of sectors might not be comparable to it. After all, the birth of every invincible realm saint was a miracle of the universe. There was a limited number of them, and it was unknown how many resources were needed to advance. Rumble, in an instant, because the dragon core had melted, it turned into drops of dragon origin energy. It was like raindrops, sprinkling in every corner of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers. Suddenly, the entire space of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers was rained, and it went on for 7 days and 7 nights. The raindrops covered almost every inch of soil and permeated every corner of the space. All the creatures living in the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers received great benefits. After obtaining this huge amount of origin energy, the space inside the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers was also expanding, expanding, and expanding until it was more than 10,000 times larger than before. At this moment, the mountains grew taller. Towering mountains could be seen everywhere, reaching into the clouds, with no end in sight. The rivers became wider, and they were like giant dragons, lying across the earth, crisscrossing and running through the past and present. The valleys were deep, the seas were surging, and the deserts were dark. Even every plant in this world was becoming larger, as if they were adapting to the ever-expanding world of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers. This drastic change was simply unprecedented. It was as if the evolution of hundreds of billions of years of life had happened in a short 7 days and 7 nights, and all the creatures in the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers received different degrees of benefits. I've advanced. After an unknown amount of time, Xia Ping's body trembled. He felt the bead of mountains and rivers in his hand immediately change. All of its power had reached its peak. Boom! At that moment, the pearl that was initially the size of a fist suddenly turned into the size of a book. It was also only the size of a palm, but it emanated an unfathomable aura. It could be said that it had become completely different now. Its strength had increased by who knew how many times. It was simply a geometric increase. This book had a total of 33 pages, representing the 33 heavens. It was as if every page of the book was a great thousand world. Each great thousand world was incomparably huge, rich in species and resources, and the density of the heaven and earth spiritual chi was also more than 1,000 times higher than before. It seemed to be able to communicate with the origin of the universe at all times, devouring the energy of the origin to strengthen the internal space of this book, causing the living beings in the space world to grow stronger every moment. Wonderful, wonderful, truly wonderful. Xia Ping's heart trembled. He could feel that the book in his hand was many times stronger than the bead of mountains and rivers from before. A casual smashing of it could cause a page to fly out, and it could crush a great thousand world. This was like a collision between worlds, producing intense destructive power. Moreover, the internal space of this book was also extremely sturdy, the kind that was indestructible. If it were before, perhaps the primordial sages would be able to completely tear the world of the bead of mountains and rivers apart if they entered. All the space would be destroyed, and it would be impossible to resist. However, it was different now. The internal world of this book was terrifyingly sturdy. Even if an invincible sage were to enter, he would not be able to destroy it in a short period of time. As for other sages, there was no need to mention. Once they entered, they would be trapped until they died. It was like an unbreakable prison. Master! At that moment, the green bull also went through an earth-shattering change. Although it was still a bull, its body had condensed into a substance, as if it had a body of flesh and blood. However, this was not a true body of flesh and blood. In the eyes of Xia Ping's golden crow of hell's eyes, This body was condensed from the power of 3,000 laws. Every meridian, every blood vessel, every bone, and every inch of flesh and blood was condensed from the power of laws. This was a body of laws. It could be said that the weapon spirit Green Bull was no different from any other ordinary living being. Even if it were to leave the body of a supreme-grade saint weapon, it could still survive independently. In fact, it even possessed a formidable battle prowess. Master, now that the bead of mountains and rivers has leveled up, it has completely leveled up to the level of a supreme-grade saint weapon. I'm afraid that the name, Bead of Mountains and Rivers, is no longer suitable for it. Master, please change its name. The Green Bull felt that it was time for it to bid farewell to the past. Leveling up to a supreme-grade saint weapon was a new beginning, the birth of a new era, and the start of a new legend. Change its name? That's right. Right now, it's no longer a bead, but a book. It's no longer suitable for it to continue being called the Bead of Mountains and Rivers. Since that's the case, I'll call it the Classic of Mountains and Seas. Xia Ping rubbed his chin and changed the name of this treasure to the Classic of Mountains and Seas. Thank you for the name, Master. Hearing that, the Green Bull gently swiped across the surface of the book. Immediately, the 3 golden words Classic of Mountains and Seas appeared on the surface of the book. It was like the words of gold and jade, forming the power of laws. It was as if the 3 words had been engraved into the depths of the treasure and could no longer be changed. Not bad. Xia Ping immediately felt very satisfied. He felt that the treasure he had was not much different from the real Classic of Mountains and Seas. First of all, there was a huge spatial world inside. There were also countless species living in it, as well as a large number of precious plants. It was a complete world. The only downside was that the species in the world of the Classic of Mountains and Seas were not rich enough. Compared to the real world, there was still a huge gap. Looks like I'll have to capture some rare species in the future and put them in the world of the Classic of Mountains and Seas. That way, the Classic of Mountains and Seas will truly become a primordial world. Xia Ping rubbed his chin. He felt that this was very feasible. Right now, he had already captured many dragons and put them in. If he captured some other species, such as phoenixes, kirins, tautais, black tortoises, vermilion birds, and other divine beasts, there were also many primordial species. They would definitely make the species in the Classic of Mountains and Seas more rich and colorful. And that way, he might be able to strengthen the power of the Classic of Mountains and Seas. Chapter 2478. Meanwhile, in a primordial forest in the dragon world, Yi Mengyao, the dragon whelps, and Xia Ping's clone had been hiding in this place for some time. However, their lives were very comfortable. They did not have to worry about food and drink, and they could often log on to the virtual network to gather information. It was not a life of escape. Come on, it's time for us to go to the relic of the invisible dragon. At this time, the infernal golden crow clone opened its eyes. It sensed the message transmitted by Xia Ping's main body. Xia Ping had already taken complete control of all the restrictions and arrays in the ruins of the invisible dragon and could transmit everyone into the ruins. Although this primeval forest seemed to be sparsely populated, who knew how many holy dragons were proficient in tracking techniques in the dragon realm? If the other party really cared, Yi Mengyao and the others would definitely be tracked. Therefore, it was better for Yi Mengyao and the others to return to his side. Invisible dragon's relic? Could it be that you've already taken control of the ruins? Hearing this, Yi Mengyao couldn't help but be shocked. How long had it been? Moreover, it was a relic left behind by an invincible realm saint, which contained many powerful restrictive formations. Even the dragons in the invincible realm didn't dare to go too deep in case they got hurt. But now, Xia Ping had actually completely grasped it. It was truly unimaginable. Yes, the main body has completely grasped it. As long as we get close to the ruins of the invisible dragon, we can teleport you to the core area. We won't have to worry about being hunted down by other dragons. The golden crow of hell clone said in a deep voice. All right. Yi Mengyao nodded. Not to mention that she was a human, her true identity could not be exposed. Even if she was a giant dragon, facing the covetous eyes of so many holy dragons, she was also in danger. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Without another word, the infernal golden crow clone immediately teleported away with Yi Mengyao and the others. To the clone, which had already reached the ancient realm and possessed 80% of the main body's strength, teleportation was a small matter. Moreover, the strength of this clone far surpassed most of the near ancient sages, and it could even contend against the middle ancient sages. It could teleport 800 light years in a second. Therefore, there were not many sages who could catch up to the golden crow of hell. It was also because of this speed that some of the evil divine dragons that tried to capture Yi Mengyao and the others were easily dodged by the infernal golden crow clone. It was impossible to catch up to them. Half a day later, under the guidance of the Hell Golden Crow avatar, Yi Mengyao and the others finally approached the ruins of the invisible dragon. Buzz, as soon as they got close, the space around them suddenly fluctuated. It was like a black hole, swallowing Yi Mengyao and the others. In the next second, Yi Mengyao and the others entered the core immortal cave of the invisible dragon ruins. Betty, Kalida, Memory Dragon Mabel, Gluttonous Dragon Austin, Cloud Dream Dragon Tadish, and the other young dragons cried out in excitement when they saw Fate Dragon Betty and Formless Dragon Kalida. Since Xia Ping entered the ruins of the invisible dragon, they had not seen each other for a long time. "Ha, did you see that? Did you see how amazing your big sister is? This place is the lair of the invisible dragon, Theodore. We've completely occupied it and made it our territory." Betty, the Dragon of Fate, was very pleased with herself. By then, Xia Ping had already woken up the unconscious Destiny Dragon Betty and Formless Dragon Kalida, indicating that he had completely occupied Theodore's territory. "Wow, this is amazing. This palace is really luxurious. My God, what kind of treasure is this? So many jewels, all mine. We're rich, we're really rich this time." The young dragons were very excited, and they all cried out when they saw the peerless sacred artifact, the Formless Palace. Some of the young dragons saw the jewels engraved on the Formless Palace and pounced on it, trying to chew the jewels off. Unfortunately, after chewing for a long time, they couldn't even chew a single gem off. Their eyes seemed to have turned into the shape of jewels, and their instincts as giant dragons kept surging. "My God, ghosts, there's ghosts here." Suddenly, Wales the slow dragon couldn't help but scream in fear. He immediately noticed the formless dragon Theodore, who was bound by the soul-binding chains. He trembled in fear because the formless dragon Theodore's appearance was too terrifying and eerie. The other young dragons and Yi Mengyao also saw the formless dragon Theodore. What's there to be afraid of? As the saying goes, dragons don't have guts. This is the formless dragon Theodore. Fate Dragon Betty slapped Wales on the head, exasperated that he didn't live up to her expectations. However, she was also scared out of her wits when she first saw the formless dragon Theodore. It took her a long time to get used to it after Xia Ping's explanation. After all, children were still quite afraid of ghosts, and the young dragons were no exception. "Big sister, this is the formless dragon Theodore. It's a ghost, and it's been dead for God knows how long." Not only did the slow dragon Wales not feel relieved, but he was even more afraid. Everyone knew that the formless dragon Theodore had died a long time ago. Now that it had appeared here, if it wasn't a ghost, what else could it be? When the other dragon whelps saw this, they retreated in fear. "Hee hee, a bunch of brats." The invisible dragon Theodore looked at the group of dragon whelps with disdain. He was extremely arrogant. What's there to be afraid of? This Theodore didn't die, but turned into a specter dragon when he died. In fact, he's become a special dragon just like us. The Dragon of Fate, Betty explained. "I see." The young dragons were instantly relieved. So it was a special dragon. That made sense. But why is he tied up? Why is he chained up? Time Dragon Caesar asked curiously. It's simple. The formless dragon Theodore is a big baddie who wants to wreak havoc everywhere. So the adult dragons tied him up and imprisoned him, Formless Dragon Kalida said. The adult dragons are so powerful. I heard that the formless dragon Theodore is an invincible dragon. He was the grand elder of the dragon god shrine in ancient times, and now he's been captured by an adult dragon. The young dragons looked at Xia Ping with admiration. That's nothing. After the formless dragon Theodore died, he became a specter dragon. What a waste. Even I could capture him. Fate Dragon Betty crossed her arms and looked at the formless dragon Theodore with disdain. A bunch of brats. What are you talking about? How dare you talk about the great formless dragon Theodore like that? When I was still alive, I was awe-inspiring. Your ancestors hadn't even appeared yet, and yet you dare speak to me like that? The formless dragon Theodore was furious. It was one thing to be defeated by Xia Ping, but Xia Ping was a near-ancient saint after all. It was only natural that he couldn't beat him. But these brats dared to look down on him. Damn it. Chapter 2479. Wow, that's so cool. The spectral dragon can really talk. That's incredible. Do dragons turn into this after they die? This is the first time I've seen it. I wonder how the spectral dragon feels to the touch. What's the difference between it and us living dragons? Let's go and touch it. It's too unbelievable. I'm afraid the other dragons will be scared to death if word of this gets out. Betty and the other young dragons weren't afraid at all. Instead, their eyes lit up as they looked at the spectral dragon as if they were looking at a rare animal. Push, push, push. They moved quickly and climbed onto Theodore's enormous body. Some of the young dragons grabbed onto Theodore's beard and climbed up along it, swinging on it. Some of the young dragons rode on its head, jumping and cheering everywhere. Some of the young dragons lay on the tip of its tail and slid down, using its tail as a slide. Some of the young dragons touched and pinched everywhere, as if trying to figure out how the spectral dragon was different from other dragons. Some even tried to pluck out the scales on Theodore's body, but they were too hard and couldn't be pulled out. Why, brats, get out of my sight. The invisible dragon Theodore was furious. No matter what, he was a dragon that had once reached the invincible realm, a being that stood at the pinnacle of the universe. A single word from him could cause the death of countless lives in the star field. He held great power. But now, it was being treated as a toy by these young dragons, crawling all over its body. What did they think it was? A playground? They even wanted to feel what it felt like to touch it? Bullshit. How could the great Theodore be touched by other dragons just because they wanted to? But now, its body was completely bound by the soul-locking chains like a prisoner. Even its power had been sealed by Xia Ping's 6 Dao seals, and it couldn't use any of its power at all. It was helpless in the face of these mischievous young dragons. This was truly a case of a fallen tiger being bullied by dogs. The grievance in its heart couldn't be described with words. This is the invisible dragon Theodore who once reached the invincible realm? Seeing this scene, Yi Mengyao was speechless, and the corner of her mouth twitched. If the giant dragons of the dragon god shrine saw this invincible dragon, who used to be majestic and stood on the top of the universe, in this state, they would be so shocked that their jaws would drop. However, she was also very surprised. Just what kind of method did Xia Ping use to capture the invisible dragon? Because she knew that even though the invisible dragon Theodore was extremely weak due to the accident, as a giant dragon of the invincible realm, it must have a lot of tricks that ordinary people couldn't imagine. If that wasn't the case, Theodore the shapeless dragon would not have deliberately leaked the ruins and lured so many holy dragons into it. But even so, the formless dragon Theodore had still fallen into Xia Ping's hands and become his prisoner. One could imagine how inconceivable Xia Ping's abilities were that even the formless dragon Theodore couldn't do anything to him. Xia Ping, what are you going to do next? Now that you've obtained the invisible dragon Theodore's relic, I'm afraid you've become a public enemy. It'll be hard for you to continue living in the dragon realm. Yi Mengyao transmitted her voice through divine sense. Don't worry about that. This relic was painstakingly built by the formless dragon Theodore. I don't know how many resources were spent on it. Even if an invincible realm giant dragon wanted to come in, it wouldn't be easy. It can be said that this place is the safest lair. Even if the other giant dragons knew that we're humans, they wouldn't be able to do anything to us. Xiaoping smiled. After taking control of the invisible palace, it was equivalent to taking control of the restriction formation of the entire relic cave abode. He also knew this place like the back of his hand and was extremely familiar with it. Therefore, he had a clear understanding of how powerful the defensive restriction formation of the cave abode was. It could only be said that the formless dragon Theodore was indeed the most fearful of the invincible dragons. It had gone to great lengths to build its lair and consumed a huge amount of resources in the universe. In order to prevent the invincible realm giant dragons from entering its relic and wreaking havoc, it had also set up many powerful space restriction formations that contain the powerful power of the laws of space. If the invincible realm dragons tried to forcibly destroy the relic cave abode, they would immediately trigger the space restriction formations and instantly teleport the invincible dragons into the dark forbidden zone. As for the giant dragons below the primordial dragon realm, they would not be able to cause any trouble in the relic cave abode. Of course, they could also slowly break the restriction formations of the cave abode. However, it would take a lot of time and at least 100 million years to do so. Therefore, it was safe for him to stay in the cave abode during this period of time. I see. Yi Mingyao finally understood why Xiaoping was so confident. It was indeed the safest place to stay in the relic cave abode. Moreover, we can also use the relic cave abode to capture the giant dragons who came here to train. We can also guarantee that nothing will happen to the Dragon God Shrine. Xiaoping smiled. The trial in the core of the cave abode was originally set up by the formless dragon Theodore to choose a giant dragon that was suitable for his physical body. It could be said that this place was a place with a slim chance of survival. Once they entered, the fate of the giant dragons would be sealed. The other dragons were also aware of this. He could use this situation to enter the space maze and seal the dying giant dragons one by one, imprisoning them all in his classic of mountains and seas. Therefore, even if the Dragon God Shrine knew that many giant dragons had disappeared after entering the space maze, they would only think that they had died in Theodore's trial instead of being captured by Xiaoping. This way, he could silently capture a large number of giant dragon slaves. After all, the area of the classic of mountains and seas had become even larger. It had expanded into 33 layers of heaven, and the area of the land inside was unbelievably large. It was like a small universe. It could be said that the classic of mountains and seas was currently in a period of development, and it needed a lot of labor. Without a doubt, these giant dragons were the best labor. They were strong, had great endurance, had long lifespans, and didn't need much rest. They were the best targets to exploit. Hearing this, Yi Mingyao was speechless, not knowing how to respond. If the elders of the Dragon God Shrine knew about this, they would probably go crazy with anger. Capturing so many giant dragons in the dragon world just to make them do hard labor was a waste of resources. This kind of hard labor was so extravagant that it made people's hair stand on end. She didn't know how to describe it, and she had never even thought about it. Poverty really limited her imagination. Chapter 2480. Alright, you little fellows, stop causing trouble here. Enter the classic of mountains and seas for me. Xiaoping was speechless when he saw Fortune Dragon Betty and the other young dragons still excitedly playing with invisible dragon Theodore. He made a grabbing motion and immediately threw the young dragons and invisible dragon Theodore into the world of the classic of mountains and seas. At this moment, there were a total of 33 worlds in the world of the classic of mountains and seas. The last world was where Xiaoping and the others usually lived. The maids, the black hole worm, the tree men, and the others would all live in this world. As for the other 32 worlds, the green bull had divided them into places for planting spiritual grains and herbs. The laborers who had been captured would live in these worlds. Of course, without permission, they couldn't leave this world. Only those who had obtained permission had the right to enter and exit the 33 worlds at will. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the blink of an eye, Fortune Dragon Betty and the other young dragons felt their figures flicker and appear in another world, while invisible Dragon Theodore was temporarily imprisoned. Wow, what is this place? It doesn't seem like the dragon realm, but it does seem a little similar. Memory Dragon Mabel looked around curiously. She found that she seemed to have left the ruins of the invisible dragon and arrived in an unfamiliar place. She sensed that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth around her was incomparably rich, and it also contained an enormous amount of dragon origin energy. Although it could not compare to the origin energy deep in the core of the dragon realm, compared to some remote places, it was still an excellent place for cultivation. In reality, the classic of mountains and seas had fused with the dragon core of the invisible dragon and possessed the dragon origin energy of an invincible realm dragon. This kind of energy was scattered to every corner of the classic of mountains and seas, turning this place into a place similar to the little dragon realm. Even if dragons entered this world, they would not feel the slightest discomfort. Instead, they would think that it was similar to the dragon realm. Moreover, the dragon core of an invincible realm dragon had already formed a complete world, endlessly growing and turning into a perfect cycle. It could devour the origin energy of the universe and transform it into dragon origin energy. Therefore, the origin energy that was constantly scattered around the classic of mountains and seas would not become less and less. On the contrary, as the classic of mountains and seas grew stronger, the dragon origin energy of this world would also become denser, and it might even become a holy land for cultivation like the dragon realm. Caw. This place is a private world owned by adult dragons. It's a place completely different from the dragon world. Betty, the dragon of destiny, looked like she knew everything. Those giant dragons that were captured were imprisoned here, unable to leave for the rest of their lives. It can't be. Could it be that we're too naughty, so the adult dragons want to imprison us in this world? Hearing this, the gluttonous dragon Austin almost cried in fear. What an idiot! Fate Dragon Betty said disdainfully, "Of course not. How are we naughty? The adult dragons must have been worried that we would be bored, so they put us in this world to play. I heard that in this world, there are many races that adult dragons have captured from other worlds. There are even humans." She had a serious look on her face. Human? It can't be, right? Are you talking about the legendary super demons that eat anything and even us giant dragons? Hearing this, even the drowsy Constance woke up with a start. She could not help but widen her eyes as she looked at Betty in disbelief. In the dragon realm, some adult dragons demonized humans to scare the young dragons not to be naughty. They said that if they were naughty, they would be captured and eaten alive by humans. Humans were like demons in the eyes of the children in the dragon realm. But there were also young dragons who scoffed, thinking that it was just a story to scare the children, because they had never seen what a real human looked like. That's right, it's the legendary humans. Fate Dragon Betty nodded seriously. Anyway, we have to be careful in this world. Don't get caught by humans, or we will be roasted and eaten. Yeah, don't worry, big sis. We will never be caught by humans. Sleeping Dragon Constance and the rest of the young dragons nodded with a cautious look. And other than humans, there are creatures that are completely different from the giant dragons in this world. Everyone must be careful. Fate Dragon Betty had never been to the world of the classic of mountains and seas, but she had heard some information from Xia Ping, so she remembered it. Kaboom! But just as she finished speaking, there was a loud rumble from afar. It was like an earthquake and everything was shaking. Then, tree ants that were tens of meters tall and hundreds of meters tall walked past them. At that moment, all the young dragons were stunned. Big sis, the trees here can walk on their own. Time Dragon Caesar's eyes widened in shock. In the dragon realm, all the trees were stationary, and they would never walk like living beings. But what was happening now? There were so many trees, and they even had noses, eyes, and mouths. They were walking on the ground in unison like draconians. For a moment, they were dumbfounded. Fate Dragon Betty screamed. While the power of fate did not warn her, the trees were too scary, and they did not look like normal trees. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As soon as she finished, the young dragons fled in fear, not daring to stay where they were. They ran out of the forest at an unbelievable speed. What's going on? Such a commotion also alerted a tree ant elder who was moving forward. Reporting to Elder, It seems like a group of young dragons invited by Lord God has accidentally entered the forest. A Trey ant also noticed the presence of Fate Dragon Betty and the other young dragons. I see. Then there's no need to care about it. Now that this world has benefited from Lord God's power, it seems to have become more vast and boundless. According to Lord God's orders, we must plant a large number of trees, flowers, and other plants in this world to increase the vitality of this world. The Trey ant elder cackled. Hee hee, how exciting. Looking at the trees growing strong and the whole world covered in green, it really makes one happy. This world is so beautiful. Praise Lord God, we are all very energetic when we work. Oh, stop talking nonsense. Let's get to work. I can't wait to see the forests rise from the ground. Trees, let's plant this world full of trees. The Trey ants cried out excitedly and even sang. To the tree people, it was their mission to cultivate dense forests. Just like how humans wanted to expand their country's territory, no matter how many dense forests they cultivated, they would never be able to satisfy the tree people's appetite. Chapter 2481. Half an hour later. Fate Dragon Betty and the other dragon whelps sprinted all the way as if they didn't care about their lives. They finally ran out of the forest. Phew! At this time, the Fate Dragon Betty heaved a sigh of relief. That forest is really too dangerous. Fortunately, we ran fast, or else we might have been eaten by that group of strange trees. This world is really scary. Even trees can walk, have mouths, noses, eyes, and so many hands and feet. It's scary to death. The other dragon whelps couldn't help but nod in agreement. Luckily, they were smart and decisive. Otherwise, they might have been eaten by those weird trees in the forest. Wait, there are weird creatures over there too. Suddenly, slow dragon whales pointed at a plain in front of them. There was a group of weird creatures there. That's really weird. Why don't they have horns? Look, their wings are also very strange. They actually have feathers. It seems to be very weak, Wang Zhong said with a smile. Oh my God, there are some without hair. They're bald. Fate Dragon Betty and the other dragon whelps widened their eyes, looking at the scene before them in disbelief. Many maidservants appeared in front of them. They were rabbit-eared maidens, angel maidens, winged maidens, mermaid maidens, fairy maidens, angel maidens, cat-eared maidens, rabbit-eared maidens, snake maidens, arhat maidens, azura maidens, sucking blood maidens, and so on. Almost all the races in the universe appeared in this place. However, such races didn't exist in the dragon world. To these dragon whelps, they had never heard of them. They hadn't even heard of rumors. All of a sudden, these dragon whelps were stunned. It was an eye-opener. Look, there seems to be a tycoon dragon over there. Gluttonous dragon Austin immediately shouted, pointing at a little lowly in front. Fate Dragon Betty and the other dragon whelps looked in the direction Austin was pointing. They immediately felt a glint of jewels. It was as if they were blinded by the light of the jewels. A little lowly wearing a crown appeared in front of them. It was embedded with many universe jewels. Every one of them was priceless. Any one of them could buy an entire city. Moreover, the clothes that this little lowly was wearing were all made of gold. They were also very luxuriously inlaid with a large number of precious gems, as if they were free. Everyone could see that this little lowly was so rich that it made people's hair stand on end. To be honest, they had seen many rich dragons in the dragon realm, but they had never seen such a tycoon dragon. It was as if he was afraid that others wouldn't know that he was rich, so he wore jewelry all over his body. Although this behavior was very unsophisticated in the eyes of other races, in the eyes of the Wons, this was simply a super rich person, a superstar existence that stood at the top of many Wons. How extravagant and wealthy was it to be able to wear gems all over one's body? Even if they wanted to do such a thing, they couldn't do it. This little lowly was the golden slime, Xiao Jin. Oh, are you new here? The golden slime Xiao Jin also saw the group of dragon whelps. In a flash, she appeared in front of the group of dragon whelps and looked at them expressionlessly. What do you want? The dragon of destiny Betty and the other dragon whelps said weakly. As poor people, they felt that they didn't have any confidence to speak in front of a tycoon. It was as if they would be despised as a country bumpkin at any time. They were instantly overwhelmed by Xiao Jin's aura. It's good that you're new. Since it's our first meeting, I'll give these gems to you. It's just a small token of my appreciation, please accept it. With a clatter, the golden slime Xiao Jin waved her hand and immediately threw out a pile of colorful gems. The glint of the pearls blinded the eyes of all the dragon whelps. Big sister. The dragon of Destiny Betty and the other dragon whelps were immediately convinced. With a smack, they laid limply on the ground, completely convinced. They had never seen a WRM that was so rich that she was actually willing to share her gems with other dragons. After all, which ordinary dragon wouldn't keep the gems for themselves and hide them in their own caves? They wouldn't even give a single gold coin to other WRMs. They were extremely stingy. However, what was up with this tycoon dragon? He was so rich that he didn't even care about the gems. It was clearly their first meeting, but he actually gave a pile of gems as a greeting gift. This was too much. Faced with such an attack of money, they couldn't resist at all and were instantly corroded by the sugar-coated cannonball. Even the dragon of Destiny Betty was the same. As WMs, they couldn't resist the charm of the gems at all. Their eyes formed the shape of gems, and they were extremely excited. Hee, a bunch of country bumpkins who haven't seen the world. At this moment, a voice sounded from the side. What? Hearing this, the dragon of Destiny Betty and the other dragon whelps were filled with anger. They immediately looked towards the source of the voice, but when they saw the person who spoke, their mouths couldn't help but twitch. Because the one who spoke was actually a little lowly, but she had 2 huge dark circles around her eyes like a panda. She seemed to have not slept for many days, and her hair was as messy as a bird's nest. They felt that this little lowly was even poorer than them, no different from a beggar dragon. For a moment, they felt that they had become rich, and they couldn't help but straighten their backs. What kind of look is that? What kind of look is that? Why are you looking at me with such pitiful eyes? Seeing this scene, that little lowly was instantly enraged. She was extremely frustrated. She felt that as the Black Hole Worm King, she was actually being looked down upon by this group of weak dragon whelps. Her pride couldn't accept it for a moment. She looked a little decadent now, but that was because she had worked hard for 3 days and 3 nights to play the game. However, this group of despicable dragon whelps actually dared to look down on her. This was a group of shallow dragon whelps who judged people by their appearance. They had no foundation at all, and she didn't want to be associated with them. Hee. The group of dragon whelps chuckled. They couldn't be bothered to talk to this kind of beggar dragon because they were afraid that they would be pestered and ask for money. Friends, I wonder if you've heard of the Greatest King competition? With a swoosh, at this moment, another lowly with messy hair like a bird's nest and 2 huge dark circles around her eyes appeared silently in front of this group of dragon whelps. Her body emitted an inexplicable decadent and dark aura. Just like a black hole, it could pull any life into the abyss of depravity at any time. It was as if she was a dark demon king from the abyss of the end of the world. What? The dragon of Destiny Betty's heart couldn't help but tighten. She seemed to have sensed that the future of fate was dark. She seemed to have been pestered by a super big trouble, and it was the kind that she couldn't get rid of no matter what. Chapter 2482. At that moment, in the world of the classic of mountains and seas, Xia Ping was in a cave, and in front of him was a sacred medicine that he had obtained from the invisible palace, the infinite pure yang fruit. It was about the size of a fist, and its body was densely covered with law of fire patterns. From afar, it looked like a small sun that emitted eternal energy. Its surface temperature was 18,000 degrees Celsius, which was enough to melt most of the substances in the world. Its internal temperature was more than 100 times higher. It could be said that ordinary cultivators would probably not be able to get close to this sacred medicine. Just getting close to it would be like getting close to a star, and they would be burned to ashes by the eternal heat. In fact, this sacred medicine was only able to be nurtured from the depths of a star after accumulating endless stellar energy. This sacred medicine contained an extremely large amount of pure yang energy. If an ordinary person were to consume it, they would immediately be able to cultivate a pure yang body and be born with the ability to control the law of fire. Of course, he had the golden crow of hell bloodline, so he naturally did not need to cultivate a pure yang body to cultivate a golden crow of hell body. However, this sacred medicine was extremely beneficial for him to awaken the golden crow of hell bloodline. After obtaining this sacred medicine, the bloodline in his body immediately throbbed and yearned for it, as if it was ecstatic. Therefore, after everything was done, he didn't say a word and immediately went into closed-door cultivation to consume the infinite pure yang fruit. As for capturing the giant dragons that were trapped in the maze, he could leave it to his clones. There was no need for him to do it himself, as it would be too much of a waste of time. What a great treasure! In an instant, Xia Ping ate the infinite pure yang fruit without hesitation. The fruit melted in his mouth and instantly turned into a mass of solidified molten lava. Every drop of molten lava contained the energy essence of a star, and it was incredibly dense. It flowed into his limbs, bones, and even every cell. At that moment, the 70 billion golden crow of hell cells in his body were in a trance, as if they were extremely eager to devour this pure yang energy without any impurities. To the golden crow of hell, this was the best nourishment for growth. This feels good. Xia Ping felt an unprecedented restraint. If this magma energy flowed into someone else's body, they would probably be burned to ashes immediately. There was no way they could withstand such an extremely domineering star essence. In reality, not all sacred medicines were suitable for ordinary people to consume. If an ordinary person consumed this sacred medicine, even a little bit of it would be burned to ashes in an instant. After all, this was the energy essence of a star. It emitted endless heat at every moment. Such a star's essence was now concentrated inside a fruit. One could imagine how powerful this sacred medicine was. How could it be something ordinary people could come into contact with? Even ordinary sages would find it difficult to devour these stellar essences, let alone ordinary people who could not come into contact with them. This was because the energy contained in these stellar essences was too violent. If these sages were to consume it and were unable to refine it, it would cause the violent star essence to run amok in their bodies. It might even harm their souls. Therefore, this saint medicine was considered poison to most sages. However, to him, who possessed the bloodline of the golden crow of hell, this pure yang energy was the most precious life essence. It was as if it was natural food and nourishment for his growth. Whoosh! When these stellar essences surged into Xia Ping's body, every golden crow of hell cell in his body was greedily devouring them, promoting the growth of his golden crow of hell bloodline. It was as if his entire body was soaking in a hot spring. It was as if at this moment he was evolving at every moment, as if he had broken a certain limit. 100 million, 1 billion, 2 billion, 5 billion, 10 billion, the golden crow of hell cells, which had not been awakened for a long time, began to awaken crazily with the help of the infinite pure yang fruit. After awakening, the golden crow of hell cells integrated into the depths of Xia Ping's bloodline. His muscles, skin, meridians, blood vessels, bones, and other parts of his body were further strengthened by the awakening of the golden crow of hell cells. Even his soul was fully tempered by this sacred power, as if it had been tempered thousands of times. Every blood vessel in the depths of his body was flowing with turbulent magma energy. It was extremely hot. With Xia Ping's body as the center, circles of condensed violent heat were also emitted. It was as if hundreds of light years around him had been burned into ashes. It was extremely hot. Beams of crimson light pierced through the void, shining brightly and pervasively. It was as if these light beams could melt metal and melt iron. Fortunately, Xia Ping was in the classic of mountains and seas, a peerless sacred artifact, and benefited from the isolation of the classic of mountains and seas. Otherwise, the many mighty figures in the dragon realm would definitely notice such an abnormal state of cultivation. Moreover, if it was a high-grade sacred artifact, the classic of mountains and seas, it would probably be a little difficult to withstand such heat. However, after advancing to a peerless sacred artifact, this was child's play. 7 days and 7 nights passed in a flash. At this moment, Xia Ping finally devoured all the star essence of the infinite pure yang fruit, taking it for himself. At this moment, the number of golden crow of hell cells in his body had also awakened to 100 billion. It was as if the bloodline in his body had reached a critical point, and all the power of his bloodline was undergoing a metamorphosis at this moment. It was as if an earth-shattering change had taken place. In particular, every single bone in his body had been corroded by the golden crow of hell's blood and tempered into a dark gold color. Dense nomological patterns also appeared on the surface of the dark gold bones. It was as if these bones had turned into godly bones, containing hints of imperishable characteristics. They were extremely tough and indestructible. Even if Xia Ping were to die right now, these bones would probably remain in his body. Even if countless epochs passed by, these godly bones would not turn to dust and would exist eternally. If these bones were to be refined into magic treasures, they would definitely be top-notch magic treasures that could become peerless sacred artifacts. They might even contain powerful laws of hell and fire. Thanks to the support of these dark gold godly bones, the power in his body skyrocketed even further. It was as if the genes in his body had undergone a further metamorphosis at this moment. At the same time, Xia Ping's soul force had also undergone a tremendous evolution. If it were before, the range of his divine sense would only be 700 light years. However, it had now expanded to a range of 1,000 light years, which was an increase of 30% to 40%. With such a powerful divine sense, even the ancient sages were probably only at this level. However, to Xia Ping, this was merely a side effect. The most important thing was that after awakening 100 billion golden crow of hell cells, he had finally awakened a new bloodline ability. Chapter 2483. This bloodline mystic power? Xia Ping's pupils constricted as he sensed the information coming from the depths of his bloodline. He could feel that this newly awakened bloodline mystic power was so powerful that it made his hair stand on end. Bloodline mystic power, soul shriek. Ability 1. Let out a shriek from the main body. As long as a living being's soul isn't strong enough within the range of the divine sense, their soul will be pulled out of their body and extracted out of thin air. It's almost impossible to defend against. Ability 2. Devour the soul that has left the body and use the soul energy as one's own to increase one's strength. Without a doubt, this was a powerful soul attack type mystic power. Furthermore, it was a plundering, area of effect soul mystic power. Living beings who weren't strong enough would die if they faced this bloodline mystic power. In fact, after the golden crow of hell's soul fell into hell, it could become the ruler of hell and suppress all the demon gods in the world because of this bloodline mystic power. As long as it let out a soul shriek, those powerful demon gods with immortal bodies who were said to be unkillable would basically have their souls extracted and killed. One could imagine that those demon gods who relied on their immortal bodies would be in a constant state of fear. They no longer had the confidence to be unkillable. This ability made countless demon gods in hell tremble in fear. With this bloodline mystic power, the golden crow of hell swept through everything and devoured the souls of countless demon gods. It kept growing stronger and finally became the true ruler of hell. This ability is too powerful. Xia Ping's pupils shrank. Now that he had awakened 100 billion golden crow hell cells, he finally felt the power of the infernal demon lord's bloodline in his body. It was so powerful that it was unreasonable and went against the laws of the universe. It was no wonder that the universe's origin feared it and kept sending down divine punishment to prevent this mythical creature from reviving. He had also cultivated Zhuangzhou's dream of butterfly and the true solution of illusion, but compared to the bloodline mystic power, soul shriek, he was still far from it. This was a forceful and irresistible bloodline mystic power. If he couldn't block it, he would die. It was a terrifying hell mystic power that was created purely for killing and destroying the world. The golden crow of hell probably wasn't some kind person back in hell. It was purely an extremely evil demon god of hell. That was why it could rule over everything and stand at the peak of all demon gods. A single shriek was enough to destroy all the races in the world, kill billions of demons, and devour countless souls. Oh no, the heavenly tribulation is about to descend. Suddenly, Xia Ping sensed that a terrifying lightning tribulation was born in the depths of the void. It was as if a huge tribulation aura was brewing. This lightning tribulation was more than 100 times more terrifying than the one he had encountered before. Most importantly, he was in the dragon realm. If he were to undergo tribulation here, how could he hide it from the many invincible dragons in the dragon realm? Once his true body appeared, he would die. To the infernal plane. Thinking about that, Xia Ping made a prompt decision to leave the dragon realm through the mountain and sea scripture's spatial channel and head to the underworld plane to undergo his tribulation. Otherwise, he would definitely cause big trouble here. An hour later, Xia Ping shuttled all the way back to the burning hell. 365 Fourth Fire Tribulation Thunder, really powerful. Xia Ping immediately sensed the aura of tribulation coming from the source. This lightning tribulation was many times more terrifying than the last time. It was simply a geometric increase. At that moment, a huge whirlpool of tribulation clouds appeared in the sky, seemingly enveloping the entire burning hell. Moreover, this tribulation cloud was crimson, brewing an extremely huge power of fourth fire. This was one of the unusual flames of the world, containing extremely terrifying destructive energy. Vaguely, there seemed to be billions of fire dragons condensed from the power of fourth fire in the depths of the tribulation clouds. They were faintly discernible, as if the world was collapsing and magma was pouring down. If this destructive energy poured down, it would definitely cause a scene of destruction. Wherever the flames went, there would be a sea of fire. Not a blade of grass would grow, and all things would be destroyed. However, for the infernal Golden Crow bloodline, the power of fourth fire was not so terrifying. This made him feel a lot more at ease. Perhaps he could take advantage of this tribulation lightning to further strengthen the power of his bloodline. This was a tribulation, but also an opportunity. And this scene was immediately discovered by the many demons and nether ghosts in the burning hell. What's going on? Why did the entire burning hell suddenly dim, as if it was enveloped by tribulation clouds? Yes, it's really terrifying. It's like the wrath of the heavens. This is simply unheard of. If it descends, the entire burning hell will be destroyed. What the hell is going on? The many demons and nether ghosts felt the fourth fire tribulation lightning in the depths of the void, and all of them trembled in fear. Even though they were all powerful demons, they could not withstand this kind of heavenly might. Moreover, the heavenly wrath was merciless. Even if they passed it, there would be no benefits. They would only be heavily injured. But if they could not pass it, only death awaited them. Don't worry, this is the Lord undergoing tribulation. This happened once before, so it's not a big deal. Some of the demons had experienced this before, so they were already very familiar with it. No way, it's the Lord undergoing tribulation? Why haven't I heard of this before? That's right, even if the Lord has the bloodline of a demon god, there's no such thing as a tribulation. What do you know? The Lord has the bloodline of an ordinary demon god. This is the blood of a demon god that the world envies. It's completely different from ordinary demon gods. How can it be compared? So that's how it is. No wonder the Lord's strength is so terrifying. It's beyond imagination. It seems that we've really profited greatly by following the Lord. Indeed, the Lord's strength might not be comparable to those peak demon gods right now, but given time, he will definitely surpass them. At that time, minor characters like us won't even have a chance to stand at the Lord's side. This is an eternal opportunity for us, the greatest fortune. We must grasp it well. The many demons and nether ghosts discussed the matter. They all worshipped Xia Ping. In particular, after they had been corroded by the Golden Crow of Hell's bloodline, as time went on, they became more and more loyal to Xia Ping. It was difficult for them to shake off this kind of soul imprint. This was the terrifying aspect of the corrosion of a divine beast's bloodline. It could silently and unknowingly affect one's subconscious and soul. After another half a day, the enormous power of the tribulation clouds in the sky above the burning hell finally finished brewing. It poured down on Xiaoping's head, as if it wanted to destroy this monstrous genius of the universe. Xiaoping stood in the air, his eyes filled with fighting spirit. He was fearless, and his body radiated an extremely powerful aura that shook space and twisted it. Chapter 2484. In the blink of an eye, 7 days and 7 nights had passed. The 365 fourth fire tribulation thunder bombarded almost all day long. The entire burning hell was covered in the fourth fire tribulation thunder, roaring and making countless devils tremble. Bolts of fourth fire tribulation lightning fell. It could destroy the world. Ordinary immortal saints would probably lose half their lives if they were hit by a bolt of fourth fire tribulation lightning. Even the fourth fire tribulation lightning was burning crazily and would never be extinguished. Even saints with immortal bodies would be burned by the fourth fire tribulation lightning all the time until their souls were destroyed. In order to avoid the fourth fire tribulation lightning, countless fourth fire tribulation lightning were hiding. Above the burning hell, countless fourth fire tribulation lightning seemed to have turned into fire dragons, covering the sky and the earth, as if to destroy the world. Everywhere was red. Even though the burning hell was full of flame power, it was not comparable to this high-level tribulation fire power, which also caused the temperature of the entire burning hell to rise sharply. Finally passed. With a boom, as the last thick fourth fire tribulation lightning fell, Xiaoping opened his mouth and swallowed the fourth fire tribulation lightning, taking all the fourth fire tribulation lightning as his own. At this moment he finally passed the terrifying fourth fire thunder tribulation without any danger. Not bad fourth fire tribulation lightning. Xiaoping smiled slightly. He was very satisfied with this tribulation lightning. As a golden crow of hell, its resistance to flame was too strong. It was simply a natural ruler. All the flame power was for him to use, so when these fourth fire tribulation lightning fell on him, it was like food, being swallowed by the golden crow of hell cells all over his body. As the fourth fire tribulation lightning fell, he also had a full meal. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he swallowed a large amount of fourth fire tribulation lightning, making his golden crow of hell bloodline stronger, awakening a total of 150 billion golden crow of hell cells. After this tribulation lightning, his body was also tempered and stronger. It seemed that more golden crow of hell runes appeared in his body's 206 bones, and the depths of the bones showed a dark gold color, as if more immortal divinity emerged. Because of this, Xiaoping felt that his understanding of the laws of the universe seemed to be easier, as if a layer of window paper had been pierced by him, and understanding the origin laws of the universe was simply a piece of cake. It was as if he had become the son of the heavenly Tao. At the same time, his magic power had grown to the peak of the near-ancient realm. He was just a step away from advancing to the Middle Ages and comprehending the law of time. Vaguely, he felt as if he could perceive the existence of traces of the law of time, as if it could distort the arc of time. As long as there was an opportunity, he would be able to ascend to the Middle Ages immediately. The burning hell seems to have changed as well. Xiaoping's spiritual consciousness scanned the entire burning hell. It seemed that after experiencing the fourth fire tribulation thunder, the entire burning hell had also been tempered by the tribulation thunder, becoming several times stronger than before. Even when ancient fiends fought in the burning hell, they couldn't destroy it. Even if ancient fiends attacked with all their might, they wouldn't be able to destroy the burning hell. Furthermore, a large amount of fourth fire tribulation lightning fell on every corner of the burning hell, causing the fourth fire power to scatter everywhere, making the burning hell's source even stronger. Flame power seemed to be born everywhere. Many lucky burning devils also found an opportunity to devour a wisp of flame power and strengthen the flame power in their bodies. It could be said that for the burning hell, this was a calamity, but also a fortuitous opportunity. All of a sudden, Xiaoping's spiritual consciousness expanded to thousands of light years away. He immediately sensed that outside the burning hell, there seemed to be a large number of void monsters. These void monsters' bodies were distorted, emitting a chaotic, evil, and chaotic aura. There were many of them, more than 200,000, and each of them had terrifying strength. Even if a middle-level hell plane encountered 200,000 void monsters, it would suffer heavy losses. Who knew how many fiends and nether ghosts would die? They actually attracted the void monsters? Xiaoping narrowed his eyes. He knew that the void of hell was actually a very dangerous place. The reason why he didn't encounter void monsters in the burning hell and scorched earth hell was because the burning hell was too weak. Such a low-level hell plane was like a grain of sand in the vast hell world. It was completely inconspicuous, so naturally, it wouldn't attract the attention of the void monsters. After all, no human would constantly pay attention to the ants under their feet, unless those ants gathered together in large numbers. But if they advanced to a middle-level hell plane, it would be different. It was equivalent to growing from an ant to a bird. Although it would still be very weak, it would be enough to become the void monster's food. From time to time, it would attract some scattered void monsters. In addition, Xiaoping had undergone the tribulation for 7 days and 7 nights, which caused a huge energy tide and energy waves. And how could these void monsters, who were extremely sensitive to energy, sit still? They all gathered from various corners of the hell's void and set off for the burning hell. At this moment, the burning hell was like a burning sun, emitting an unparalleled light. It was like a firefly in the darkness, attracting the attention of countless void monsters. This is also a good time to test the power of my new bloodline ability. Xiaoping's eyes flashed with a hint of killing intent. To ordinary fiends, these void monsters were undying and almost impossible to kill with conventional means. But to him, these void monsters were just fuel. As long as the undying characteristic of these void monsters was removed, it was actually not a big deal. So, in an instant, his figure flashed, traversing hundreds of light years, and immediately appeared in front of these void monsters. Roar! Seeing Xiaoping's figure appear, these void monsters were a little dumbfounded. Because they had lived for so long, they had never seen a fiend come knocking on their door. After all, when those fiends saw the void monsters, which one of them didn't flee in fear? It was already too late to escape, so how would they dare to take the initiative to appear in front of them? Wasn't that just courting death? However, these irrational void monsters, whose minds were filled with chaos and slaughter, didn't think so much. Since this food had come knocking on their door, they could just eat it directly. Why should they care so much? As for the reason why these stupid fiends came to die, it wasn't important. What was important was that they could fill their stomachs and fill that seemingly endless hunger and emptiness. The void monsters roared and pounced towards Xiaoping. Chapter 2485. Bloodline Mystical Ability, Soul Shriek. Seeing these void monsters, Xiaoping did not hesitate. He immediately activated his golden crow of hell bloodline, and an immense amount of magic power surged out. Vaguely, a huge shadow of a golden crow of hell seemed to appear behind him. It was almost tangible, like the birth of a hellish sun. It emitted an unparalleled might, suppressing the space-time of thousands of light years. It was as if at this moment, even the laws of space-time had come to a standstill. Everything in the world could not move. The golden crow of hell behind him let out a long cry. With its body as the center, it let out an earth-shattering shriek. There seemed to be circles of formless soul ripples spreading out, affecting thousands of light years. A formless, bizarre, and terrifying secret technique of the soul immediately erupted. Boom! At this instant, the 200,000 void monsters were stunned. Their hearts were usually filled with chaos, slaughter, madness, and other thoughts. But now, there was an emotion called fear in their hearts. They felt that the shadow of the golden crow of hell was like the highest predator in hell. It was the ruler that devoured all life in hell. It was the destroyer of all worlds, the symbol of doomsday. Even though they were undying and indestructible void monsters, they could not withstand this power. Bang, bang, bang. But before these void monsters could escape, circles of gray soul ripples instantly affected them. In the next second, their souls, which were hidden in the distorted, chaotic, and bizarre bodies, were instantly extracted. It seemed that no matter what kind of power it was unable to resist this mysterious power that extracted souls. What's going on? What kind of power is this? Why did it become like this? Our souls were directly extracted? What kind of demon is this guy? Why does he have such a bizarre power? Why is this happening? Waves of powerful soul ripples were communicating. These void monsters were frightened and uneasy. They could not help but scream. Without the protection of their indestructible bodies, even the most ordinary demon could easily kill and devour them if they were only left with their souls. They had been in hell for such a long time. They had never seen such a bizarre and terrifying thing. It was truly beyond their imagination. It was too unbelievable. Interesting. Xia Ping narrowed his eyes. Naturally, he could also sense the communication between these soul waves. It was clear that the information given to the devils was wrong. These void monsters were not without intelligence, nor were they unable to communicate. It was just that these void monsters disdained to communicate with the demons, just like how humans would never talk to their food. They prided themselves on being a higher life form. Although their hearts were filled with chaos, slaughter, and other emotions, there seemed to be a trace of rationality and calmness in the depths of their souls, allowing them to communicate with each other. They had a high level of intelligence. However, just where did these void monsters come from and what was their goal? Devour. Xia Ping didn't say anything. He didn't want to talk to these void monsters. Even if he asked them, they probably wouldn't answer. Since that was the case, he would just obtain information from their souls. Crash. In the blink of an eye, the golden crow of hell behind him let out another long cry. It seemed to have formed a huge dark soul vortex that covered thousands of light years. Within this range, all souls were unable to break free from this soul vortex. Ah! The void monsters let out mournful cries. They couldn't resist such a devouring force at all. All of their souls were rapidly sucked into this soul vortex. When the last soul of the void monster entered the corpse of the soul vortex, the golden crow of hell closed the soul vortex. Its mouth was chewing, letting out crunching sounds. It seemed to be crushing these souls to facilitate digestion. The souls of the void monsters were screaming and being tortured. They seemed to be suffering from intense torture and pain. Clearly, the souls of these void monsters had already been swallowed into the stomach of the golden crow of hell. Seeing this, Xia Ping finally understood what kind of existence the golden crow of hell was in hell. This was completely the most ferocious and brutal demon god of hell. It ate the souls of countless races and demon gods. It was basically a predator that stood at the peak of hell. It wasn't much different from the dark sun of the abyss world. Rumble. Before Xia Ping could think of anything, the souls of these void monsters that had been devoured were instantly incinerated by the furnace of hell and the solar furnace. They were refined and transformed into the purest energy. Following that, this energy rapidly surged into his limbs and bones. Bang bang bang. Very quickly, the golden crow of hell cells in his body also awakened rapidly. 1 billion, 2 billion, 5 billion, 10 billion, 20 billion. In the end, he had awakened a total of 50 billion golden crow of hell cells. In other words, at this moment, Xia Ping had awakened a total of 200 billion golden crow of hell cells. As expected of the best fuel. Xia Ping had a look of satisfaction. He felt his stomach warm and had a strong sense of satisfaction. It was as if he had eaten a sumptuous meal like the Manchu Han imperial feast. To be honest, these void monsters were the best fuel for his golden crow of hell bloodline. Previously, he had devoured a large amount of fourth fire tribulation lightning for a total of 7 days and 7 nights. However, he had only gained 50 billion golden crow of hell cells. But now, after killing 200,000 void monsters, he had awakened 50 billion. One could imagine how beneficial these void monsters were to the growth of his golden crow of hell bloodline. Xia Ping narrowed his eyes. After devouring the souls of these void monsters, he had also obtained a portion of their memories. These void monsters were actually intelligent life forms. It was not that they did not know how to speak. It was just that the language they spoke was completely different from the language of the demons. It was the even more mysterious void language. And this language seemed to be able to communicate across space. It was soundless, like the ripples of the soul. Thus, these demons and dark ghosts could not understand it at all. They thought that these void monsters could not speak and had no intelligence. Little did they know that every time they hunted, they would call their friends and gather people to form an army. They did indeed have indestructible bodies. Even if they were killed, their souls would be reborn somewhere, and their memories would not disappear. Thus, they were fearless. However, when he wanted to continue to understand and find out where these void monsters were reborn, all of his memories seemed to come to an abrupt end, as if a tyrannical and mysterious power of law had instantly erased all traces of them, disappearing without a trace. Interesting. A cold light flashed in Xiaoping's eyes. He could sense that this seemed to be the deepest secret of hell. Right now, he might not have the strength to truly touch upon it. Chapter 2486. 3 months later. Xiaoping's main body had been cultivating in the classic of mountains and seas, consolidating the power of his golden crow of hell bloodline that had suddenly skyrocketed. He was also quietly comprehending the laws of time, hoping to find an opportunity to break through to the ancient middle realm. However, his doppelganger hadn't stopped moving in the past 3 months. As the invisible dragon Theodore's ruins fermented, countless giant dragons from all over the dragon realm rushed over in an attempt to obtain the large amount of treasures left behind by the invisible dragon. There were also many giant dragons who entered the core cave abode, planning to participate in the trial, hoping to obtain all of Theodore's treasures. The result was as one could imagine. After these giant dragons entered the space maze, it was basically like throwing meat buns at dogs. They were all heavily injured by the traps in the space maze, unable to resist at all. Xiaoping's doppelganger took advantage of this opportunity to enter the space maze and quickly capture the heavily injured giant dragons. He used the 6 Dao seals to seal their power and captured them into the classic of mountains and seas as coolies. In just a short 3 months, he had captured a total of 2,000 giant dragons. These were not ordinary giant dragons, but at least near the ancient middle realm. If such a force were to appear in the outside world, it would definitely shock the universe. Only a place like the dragon realm could nurture so many sacred-level giant dragons. However, as the giant dragons failed, not a single one of them was able to pass the trial of the core cave abode. This matter also caused fear in the hearts of the other giant dragons that came later. Moreover, after the dragon god shrine learned of this matter, they began to stop the other ancient dragons from entering the core cave abode to participate in the trial. They could not let these ancient dragons go in and die for nothing. After all, no matter how deep the dragon realm's foundation was, it could not withstand such a loss. Damn it, what kind of a trial is this core cave abode of the invisible dragon? Not a single giant dragon has passed the trial. This is too difficult. A dragon complained. That's to be expected. After all, this is a trial created by a giant dragon that had once reached the invincible realm. How could it be so easy to pass? Indeed, if it was so easy to pass, wouldn't every giant dragon be able to do it? If they succeeded, they would immediately obtain all of the invisible dragon Theodore's inheritance. How shocking would that be? But from the looks of it, not only did no dragons pass, but not a single dragon came out alive. Yeah, there seems to be no news about the arrogant colossal dragon Master Mutato after he entered. Could he have died in the trial of the core cave mansion? That's not impossible. After all, this is a trial created by the invincible dragon. Dealing with a near-ancient dragon is child's play. Fortunately, this dragon has the self-awareness to know that I can't pass this trial, so I automatically chose to give up. Otherwise, this dragon might also die in this ruins trial. That's right. As a dragon, you need to know your own limits. Otherwise, you're done for. It doesn't matter how talented you are. The dragons discussed animatedly. Many of the dragons who had entered the core cave abode were glad that they had given up on the trial after much consideration. On the surface, it seemed like they had lost a lot, and they had lost this great opportunity. But in fact, this was the right choice. After those arrogant dragons entered, none of them came out alive. Perhaps they were trapped in the space maze. It's a pity that Master Mateto actually died in the ruins. Doesn't that mean that the Enlightenment Flower, Red Blood Dragon Divine Grass, and other holy medicines are all lost in there? Isn't it? It's a pity that such a treasure is lost. I don't know how many eras such a holy medicine will only appear once. The value of a city is not enough to describe the value of this treasure. It's useless to say so much. Master Mateto is trapped in the space maze. It's impossible for him to come out. I guess the holy medicine is also lost in there. Many dragons were annoyed. Especially after some ancient dragons heard the news, they even beat their feet and chest. Such an opportunity to advance to the invincible realm was lost in vain. But they had no other way. But didn't Master Mateto hold a martial arts training class before? It seems that he plundered a lot of dragon crystals. Now what about those dragons who paid? Some dragons suddenly remembered that Master Mateto held a martial arts training class, which made the dragon realm bustle. What else can we do? Master Mateto may have died in the ruins. Can we still ask him for a refund? That's true. The death of a dragon is like an extinguished lamp. There's no way to blame him. It's a pity that those dragons who just paid not long ago died before the class started. The dragons discussed animatedly, all of them sighing. At this moment, in the Dragon God Shrine, some elders of the Dragon God Shrine were also talking about the news of the appearance of the invisible dragon Theodore's ruins. Because too many dragons had died recently, they were worried and decided to intervene in this matter. I didn't expect that the ruins of the invisible dragon Theodore would appear. I thought that the ruins would disappear in the depths of the endless dimension with Theodore's death. Yes, according to historical records, Theodore was a greedy, stingy, despicable, and shameless dragon. I didn't expect him to be so generous and willing to leave all his treasures behind. This is what humans say. When a man is about to die, his words are kind, and when a bird is about to die, its cry is sad. Maybe when he was dying, Theodore found his conscience and wanted to use these treasures to benefit the younger generation of dragons. Many dragon elders were talking about it. To be honest, there were many dragons in the Dragon God Shrine who had lived from the primeval times until now, and they were very familiar with the invisible dragon Theodore's personality. In that era, the invisible dragon Theodore was a scourge, the kind that was hated by all. If he hadn't reached the invincible realm, he would have been killed by the other dragons. After all, this bastard used his space bloodline to go to the lairs of other giant dragons every day to plunder their treasures. Any dragon that received it would be lucky if they didn't kill Theodore. Moreover, it wasn't just the dragon clan that hated Theodore. Countless clans and sages in the universe had been killed by the invisible dragon Theodore. In short, there was a 90% chance that the invisible dragon Theodore was responsible for the news of a treasure being stolen somewhere in the universe. If it weren't for the invasion of the demons from the deep abyss that put the entire universe in danger, they would have banded together and killed the super thief, the invisible dragon Theodore. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to keep the treasures they had worked so hard to obtain. One could imagine that they knew that the invisible dragon Theodore was willing to leave his treasures behind to benefit the younger generation of dragons. It was like a pie falling from the sky. In that era, no one would believe that the invisible dragon Theodore would do such a thing. Thupin Chinese. Chapter 2487. Ahem. One of the elder dragons coughed. All right, Theodore has been dead for who knows how many years. Even if he was detestable when he was alive, the news of his death is still a great relief to us. However, a dragon's death is like an extinguished lamp, so there's no need to blame him. Moreover, he left behind a large number of treasures he plundered from all over the universe when he died. Does that count as a blessing to the dragons of the dragon realm? That's not necessarily a bad thing. He felt that Theodore was worthy of praise just from the fact that he left behind a legacy. Of course, if he knew that Theodore was still alive, he would probably want to strangle him to death. Alright, Elder, what you said makes sense. No matter what happened to Theodore when he was alive, it's been so many years now, and there's no grudge between us anymore. One of the fire dragons nodded. But there's one thing that's very important right now, and that's that the trial in the core cave abode is too dangerous. No dragon has been able to pass it until now, and at least 1,000 ancient dragons have disappeared in the space maze. If this continues, we'll suffer heavy losses. I think we need to temporarily seal the ruins so that other dragons can't enter as they please. At the mention of this, his expression became very solemn as he stared at the many elder dragons. After all, 2,000 giant dragons had disappeared, and they were all holy dragons at that. Normally, this would have caused a huge uproar, enough to shake the entire dragon god shrine. It had been many years since the dragon realm had suffered such a loss. If it weren't for the ruins trial, they wouldn't have been able to sit still. It was fine for the trial to be difficult, but killing so many holy dragons and causing heavy losses to the dragon realm was unacceptable. The dragon realm couldn't bear such a loss. We do need to deal with it. After all, this is a trial created by an invincible dragon. It's too difficult for a middle ancient dragon to pass, and ordinary dragons would be courting death if they enter. We can't let this continue. If we continue, then everyone who enters will die. This isn't a trial, it's suicide. We can't let this continue. Hearing this, some of the elder dragons nodded in agreement. To be honest, the fire dragon's words did strike a chord in their hearts, and they were a little worried. The reason they had a meeting here was because they were worried about the huge side effects of the ruins. Is there no way to break through the invisible dragon Theodore's relic's restrictive formation? Just snatch the treasures inside. Why do we have to go through that stupid trial? Some elders suggested violent destruction, flipping the table on the spot. It felt like there was no need to follow the rules set by the invisible dragon Theodore. With the strength of the dragon god shrine, they could easily destroy the array formation and take all the treasures for themselves. This was the style of dragons. You think we don't want to? It's not that I don't want to, but I can't. One of the elder dragons shook his head. That invisible dragon Theodore has indeed reached the pinnacle of the law of space. Some of his restrictive formations are already close to the power of divine restrictions. If a dragon who has reached the invincible realm tries to break the restriction formation inside by force, it will be instantly sent to the forbidden land of darkness or other dangerous places by the space divine prohibition inside. We can't take the risk. Of course, we can also slowly break through the restrictions and arrays of the ruins, but it will take a long time. I'm afraid it will take at least hundreds of millions of years to slowly succeed. It was very helpless. They would have done so long ago if they could break through by force. However, the invisible dragon Theodore had already thought of this and made many measures to prevent them from breaking through by force. If a dragon tried to break through by force, it might even cause the entire cave abode to explode, destroying all the treasures inside and sending them into the turbulence of time and space. The only reason they wanted to enter the ruins was to obtain the treasures. If all the treasures inside were destroyed, it would be meaningless, and they would be in a difficult position. That damned invisible dragon Theodore. He's been dead for so many years, and yet he still causes so much trouble for us. He's even guarding against us. Some of the elder dragons gritted their teeth. Forget it. It's his inheritance, and he can do whatever he wants with it. It's nothing. Besides, it's only a few 100 million years. It'll pass in the blink of an eye. Some of the elder dragons said indifferently. For immortal dragons like them, a few 100 million years was no different from a few years. Alright, since we've made the decision, we'll temporarily seal Theodore's ruins and forbid other dragons from entering. We'll treat this place as a forbidden zone for the dragons. One of the elder dragons made a decision. Once we completely break through the restrictions on the ruins, all the treasures inside will belong to the dragon god shrine. As for the many sacred herbs and treasures inside, we can exchange them with the dragon god shrine's contribution points. The more contribution points we have, the more precious the treasures we get. Yes, we have no objections. The elders of the dragon god shrine nodded when they heard this. They too felt that this was the most appropriate way to avoid internal strife and fights to the death among the dragons. After all, the universe was currently in troubled times and needed to accumulate strength. The dragons couldn't afford any internal strife. Soon, the dragon god shrine sent dragons down to clear the area, clearing out all the dragons that had entered the ruins. Any dragons that wanted to enter the ruins were kept outside and were not allowed to enter. Although many of the dragons complained, none of them could resist the dragon god shrine's might. It didn't take long for Xia Ping to learn about the news. After all, it wasn't a top secret, and it had already caused an uproar on the internet. Everyone knew about it. It seems like there's no way to catch more dragons. Xia Ping felt a little regretful after hearing the news. He didn't expect the dragon god shrine to react so quickly. Now that he had made this decision, it was unlikely that he would be able to capture a bunch of dragons effortlessly, just like how he had sent them to their deaths one by one. Moreover, if the dragon god shrine sealed the ruins of the invisible dragon, the area within hundreds of millions of kilometers would become a forbidden zone. If that happened, it would be difficult for him to leave even if he continued to stay in the invisible dragon's cave abode. Once he left, he would probably be discovered by the elders of the dragon god shrine. After all, they stayed here all the time to break through the restrictions on the cave abode. It's time to leave this place. Thinking of this, Xia Ping decided to leave the ruins of the invisible dragon. In any case, he had already plundered all the treasures in this place, so there was nothing to stay here for. Swoosh! In a few breaths, before the dragon god shrine completely cleared the area, Hao Ren's figure flashed, and he instantly left the relic through the teleportation array in the relic. Chapter 2488. At this time, in a secret place in the dragon world, more than a dozen strange and eerie auras suddenly appeared. Their bodies exuded an extremely evil abyssal aura. If Xia Ping was here, he would definitely recognize that these creatures came from the abyss. Originally, their abyssal auras couldn't be concealed from the will of Dragon World, but they seemed to have some kind of artifact on them that could conceal their auras so that the will of Dragon World couldn't detect them. Kiki, the dragons are really a bunch of fools. Who would have thought that the ruins of the invisible dragon Theodore would make them kill each other to this extent? There's nothing we can do about it. This is the desire of life. No one can resist the desire for treasures. It's not just these dragons, even us abyssal life forms are the same. You're right, but the more of these foolish dragons die, the better. Weakening the power of the dragon realm as much as possible would be the greatest benefit to our abyss. That's true, but the death of so many dragons is still too little. It's not enough to hurt the dragon realm at all. We must give the dragon realm a ruthless blow in order to make them suffer heavy losses. The group of fiendish demons snickered, a cunning glint in their eyes. By the way, we've finally found the eternal light plane hidden in the depths of the endless spacetime. One of the demons said, "What? Have you finally found the mysterious eternal light plane world?" Many fiendish demons were shocked to hear that. That's right. After spending countless epochs and wasting a great deal of manpower and resources of our abyss, we finally found traces of the eternal light realm in the depths of spacetime. Our abyss king even personally took action to guide this world to the vicinity of the dragon realm. Soon, it would be discovered by those foolish dragons. A demon said, and this news will not only be known by the giant dragons, but also by the Chilants, Phoenixes, Kunpungs, Tautais, Pishio, Swanni, and other divine beast races. A cunning and vicious look appeared on its face. It is said that the eternal light plane contains the secrets of the gods and there are many treasures inside. This plane world actually took the initiative to give it away and let those foolish dragons obtain it. Isn't that too much of a pity? A fiendish demon regretfully said, if the eternal light realm was controlled by our abyss world, it would definitely bring great benefits to our entire abyss world. How foolish! One of the fiendish demons sneered. Haven't you learned enough from the primordial era war? Don't you understand what it means to take first? You must first give? Without giving, how can there be gains? If we sacrifice this cosmic light realm and let the dragon race, Qilin, Phoenix, Kunpeng, Taotai, Pishio, Swanni, and other races discover it, how could they miss such a good opportunity? Without a doubt, these races would definitely fight to the death for the treasures in the eternal light boundary and suffer heavy losses. Most importantly, the eternal light realm's internal environment was extremely dangerous. Even an invincible saint might perish there. If our abyssal world is lucky, we might even be able to kill the invincible sages of these races. This way, our abyssal world will have a huge advantage. It looked at the demon that had just spoken as if it was looking at an idiot. Indeed, as expected of the Abyssal King's plan, it is indeed far-sighted. Just the invincible Saint Theodore's ruins alone caused the dragon race to lose so many giant dragons. If a huge treasure like the Eternal Light Boundary appeared, wouldn't the casualties be more than 100 times greater? Indeed, just sacrificing a single Eternal Light realm can cause countless casualties to these divine beast clans. This is indeed a great deal. We are still too short-sighted and are unable to comprehend the great wisdom of the Abyssal Kings. That's right. Hearing this, the demons nodded. They immediately approved of this plan. Just a small trick was enough to cause these races to lose a large number of their elite combat strength. Moreover, the Abyssal world didn't need to pay anything, so why not? They could even sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, watching these mythological beast races fight to the death and reap the benefits. Of course, we aren't planning to hand over all the treasures in the Eternal Light Boundary. The Abyssal Demon cackled. In reality, our Abyssal Kings have already sent an army to hide in the depths of space-time, lying in ambush in a space-time near the Eternal Light Boundary. If these mythological beasts enter the Eternal Light Boundary and have a chance to obtain some treasures, we can suddenly kill our way out and kill all the mythological beasts that leave the Eternal Light Boundary alive. At that time, not only will we be able to severely injure these mythological beast races, but we will also be able to obtain all the treasures in the Eternal Light Boundary and plunder all the benefits. An extremely treacherous expression appeared on its face. Brilliant! This plan is truly brilliant. As expected of the Abyssal Kings, they've taken every conceivable possibility into account. Pushing out the Eternal Light Boundary alone is enough to make these mythological beasts fight to the death, resulting in countless casualties. But this isn't important. At the crucial moment, we can ambush them and kill all the mythological beasts that leave the Eternal Light Boundary alive. Then we Abyssal Demons will eat up all the benefits. Hearing this plan, I'm so excited that my entire body is trembling. This is simply too wonderful. I can't wait to hear the mythological beasts' anguished, despairing, and miserable screams. Presumably, after this plan is completed, the giant dragons, Qilins, Phoenixes, Kunpengs, Taotais, Pishio, Suanis, and other races will definitely suffer heavy losses. There will be countless casualties, and they will no longer be able to contend with our abyss. Many Abyssal Demons were extremely excited. They didn't expect the abyss to actually have such a grand plan, plotting all the mythological beasts together and wanting to capture them all in one fell swoop. What a grand plan this was. Thinking about it, they couldn't help but tremble. This was simply an epic plan that would definitely leave a deep mark in the history of the universe. Right? I don't know when this plan will start. I can't wait anymore. A demon asked. Don't worry, the plan will start very soon. 3 days later, the Eternal Light Boundary will silently happen, and they will also think that they discovered it themselves. They definitely won't find anything fishy. As long as we wait quietly, when the Dragon Realm is in chaos, and the Abyss World will launch an all-out attack, we will coordinate from the inside and outside. We will definitely be able to break through this world and kill all the stupid dragons in the Dragon Realm. An Abyssal Demon laughed cruelly. If that's the case, then that's great. I've long wanted to leave this damn Dragon Realm. There are clearly so many beautiful souls here, but I can't devour them. This feeling is too unbearable. Hee hee, I can't wait to start a massacre in the Dragon Realm. Many Abyssal Demons were filled with killing intent. Intense demonic chi gushed out of their bodies, almost corroding the space-time into a black world, emitting a strong corrosive power. Chapter 2489. Several days later. As expected, an ancient dragon traveling through time and space, as well as the phoenixes, Chilins, Pixius, and other sages, discovered the cosmic light realm that had appeared out of thin air at the same time. They immediately cried out in surprise. Because of this, they fought each other, each wanting to monopolize this exclusive information. But even after fighting for a long time, they were unable to determine a victor. In the end, they could only give up on the idea of silencing their enemies and quickly return to their lairs to pass on the news. Within a few breaths, the news of the cosmic light realm's appearance reached the Dragon God Temple and quickly spread throughout the entire dragon realm. The other divine beast clans also learned of this matter. For a time, the dragons were in an uproar. And Xia Ping had undoubtedly received this shocking news as well. Cosmic light realm? What is that? Xia Ping, however, looked puzzled. He had no idea what this meant. He looked at Yi Mengyao. I'm not too sure either. Yi Mengyao shook her head, indicating that she didn't know either. Perhaps this thing is very famous in the dragon realm. Why don't we ask the invisible dragon Theodore? Perhaps he knows something. You're right. Xia Ping nodded. With a thought, he immediately grabbed the invisible dragon Theodore, who was imprisoned in the classic of mountains and seas. What did you say? The cosmic light realm has appeared. The invisible dragon Theodore's eyes widened in disbelief upon hearing this news. That's right. This news has already spread like wildfire. There aren't many dragons in the dragon realm who don't know about it. But what kind of place is the cosmic light realm? Why are so many sacred dragons so excited? Xia Ping said. Of course they're excited. The cosmic light realm is a unique world formed after the fall of a god. The invisible dragon Theodore cried out. What? When Xia Ping and Yi Mengyao heard this news, they were both shocked. What kind of thing was involved with the gods? It was definitely something that was beyond their imagination. Impossible. Didn't they say that there are no gods in this universe? You're not bragging, are you? Yi Mengyao looked at Theodore suspiciously. Ha, ignorant fool. What do you know? The invisible dragon Theodore said disdainfully. It's just that there are no gods in this era. But in the previous era, it was a world where gods lived. What do you mean? Xia Ping narrowed his eyes. He had a feeling that he could hear the deepest secrets of the universe from Theodore, a secret that only the invincible saints would know. The others didn't have the qualifications to know, and they wouldn't be told. You should know that even the universe has a lifespan. Nothing is eternal. The formless dragon Theodore said faintly, of course, the lifespan of the universe is very, very long. From birth, growth, maturity, decline, and destruction, it could span countless eras. It is so long that even the gods would forget about it. But no matter what, the universe would still decline one day, and that day would be the twilight of the gods. All living beings in the universe would die because of the destruction of the universe. Then, after the universe is destroyed, a new universe will be born, and the next era of the universe will be formed. Countless lives in the universe will be born, and this cycle will continue. Is there such a thing? Could it be that when the universe perishes, no life will be able to survive? Xia Ping and Yi Mengyao narrowed their eyes as they stared at the invisible dragon Theodore, feeling a great impact. That's a good question. The invisible dragon Theodore chuckled. Actually, the destruction of the universe doesn't necessarily mean that other life forms will perish. In fact, we dragons, phoenixes, Chilins, black tortoises, and other races are all powerful races that have survived since the last era of the universe. The last era of the universe. Yi Mengyao felt as if she had heard a great secret about the dragon race and other divine beasts. Stop bragging. If you were really strong enough to survive the apocalypse, the universe would have long been dominated by the dragon race. Would there even be a place for the other peak races to appear? Xia Ping felt that the invisible dragon Theodore was talking nonsense. Brat, what do you know? The invisible dragon Theodore said disdainfully, do you think there's no price to pay to survive the apocalypse? The god of our dragon race, the ancestral dragon, paid a great price. He turned his body into a huge dragon realm and formed a powerful universal law that belonged to his realm, forcibly resisting the power of the apocalypse. But it was also because of this that the ancestral dragon fell. The gods of the other races, Chilants, Phoenixes, Black Tortoises, Tautais, and other races, also did the same. That's why they were able to survive since the last era of the universe. But it's also because we are creatures of the last era of the universe that the power in our bodies and the power of the laws we comprehend are incompatible with the universal laws of this era. If we appear in the universe, we will be targeted by the universal laws at all times. Every time we make a breakthrough, we will suffer the wrath of heaven, and even misfortune will befall us. We will encounter enemies everywhere. Therefore, it's not that we don't want to leave the dragon realm and go to other places to occupy star fields. In fact, we can't leave the dragon realm at all. He was very helpless. However, he also said that it was not a problem to leave the dragon realm for a short period of time. But when he made a breakthrough, he must return to the dragon realm. Otherwise, he would be contaminated by the aura of the universal laws of this universe, and he would suffer the wrath of heaven until he was struck to death. The stronger one was, the more powerful the wrath of heaven would be. Every dragon dared not leave the dragon realm when they were close to breaking through. They could only obediently stay in the dragon realm. Moreover, when the universe began to be born, the universal laws of the last era of the universe greatly restricted these creatures and did not allow them to easily appear in the universe. Only when the universe's creatures of this era gradually grew up and a large number of life forms could keep pace with the dragon race and other races, could the dragon race and other races appear in other universes. If it was in the primordial era, as long as the dragons left the dragon realm, they would be struck by lightning. But now, with the passage of time, the universe of this era seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. The various universal laws of the universe were firm and indestructible, so the restrictions on the dragons had weakened a lot. It was like a superpower that had grown up and had enough power. It would not care about those weak countries, so it was more tolerant of other forces. After all, the dragon race and other races of the last era of the universe seemed to be very powerful, but they could not occupy much of an advantage against the other peak races of the universe. At most, they were on par. Xia Ping had a strange expression. Why was this feeling so similar to when he made a breakthrough? He would also be struck by lightning every time he made a breakthrough. Could it be the same for these dragons? Chapter 2490. In other words, the eternal light realm is a paradise left behind by the gods of the previous universe era? Yi Mengyao narrowed her eyes. That's right. Invisible Dragon Theodore nodded. In fact, the eternal light realm appeared once in the primordial era. At that time, the myriad races of the universe entered and plundered many treasures from within. Some people even collected some divine blood from within, which allowed their cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds. Some even advanced to the invincible realm, allowing them to roam the universe unhindered. What? Yi Mengyao was shocked. The eternal light realm had appeared once, and countless people had entered it to obtain a large number of treasures and benefits. However, the eternal light realm only appeared once before quickly closing, once again hiding in the depths of space-time. I didn't expect it to appear again after so many years. Invisible Dragon Theodore sighed. Now that this paradise left behind by the gods is bound to cause disputes among countless races. It might even lead to war. After all, the eternal light realm might contain the secret to becoming a god. The secret to becoming a god. Xia Ping narrowed his eyes as he looked at Invisible Dragon Theodore. If that was the case, then the secret contained in the eternal light realm was truly incredible. It would definitely cause a sensation throughout the world. Brat, do you know the truth behind the war between the Abyss world and the myriad races of the universe in the primordial era? Invisible Dragon Theodore cackled. The truth is very simple. Those Abyss kings wanted to become the first god of this universe era. Whoever becomes the first god will be able to dominate everything in this era and open the era of the gods. Unfortunately, becoming a god is extremely difficult, especially to become the first god of this universe era. The difficulty is no less than a mortal without any talent becoming an immortal sage. So even after countless years, no life has been able to become a god. Even so, there are still countless invincible sages laying out plans, eyeing covetously like tigers watching their prey, waiting for the opportunity to become a god. Hearing this, Xia Ping suddenly recalled the ruins he had entered before. It seemed to have been left behind by the human race's sage of fortune. The other party had tampered with the ruins' treasures countless times to disguise his own death. It was likely that he had spent countless years laying out an earth-shattering trap. The reason for such a plan was probably to become the first god of this universe era. He didn't know why the position of the first god was so important, but the countless beings in the universe would be willing to pay any price in order to fight for the position of the first god. Whichever race produced the first deity would be the absolute overlord of this era of the universe. Since the previous era of the universe was the era of the gods, then the eternal light realm wasn't the only god who could withstand the great shattering of the universe, right? Could it be that there aren't any abodes left behind by other gods? Xia Ping asked. That's a good question. The conclusion is that there are, and quite a few of them. Theodore cackled. I'm sure you've heard of the Forbidden Darkness region before, but you don't know why it's so dangerous. Even invincible saints have fallen there. The reason was very simple. The Forbidden Dark Zone was an absolute forbidden area formed after the fall of the gods. Many invincible saints called the Forbidden Dark Zone the graveyard of the gods. That place truly contained the ultimate secrets of the gods. There were countless god caves left behind, and a large number of secrets about the previous era of the universe were hidden there. But it was also because of this that the graveyard of the gods was too dangerous. Even if invincible saints entered that place, they would die if they weren't careful. There was nowhere to run. So, I believe you know why the cosmic dimension is so maddening. After all, it's a lone abode of a god, and the danger it contains is much less than a forbidden area of darkness. So, it naturally became a treasure trove that countless races fight madly for. The graveyard of the gods. Xia Ping and Yi Mengyao looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Such information was probably top secret even among the upper echelons of the human race. They probably didn't have the qualifications to know such information unless they reached the level of primordial saints. After all, the Forbidden Dark Zone was too dangerous, and anyone who didn't reach the level of primordial saints would die if they entered. Why would the Forbidden Dark Zone become the graveyard of the gods? Were they all good friends who liked to die together? Yi Mengyao asked. I'm not sure. This is an eternal mystery. Even our dragon god shrine doesn't know much about it. Invisible Dragon Theodore shook his head. But someone once made a shocking guess that they did it for a purpose. They were willing to sleep in this graveyard in order to withstand the power of the great destruction of the universe, waiting for the opportunity to be resurrected. He revealed another earth-shattering secret. Resurrection? Those gods can still be resurrected? Hearing this, Yi Mengyao was shocked. It's already difficult to kill someone at the level of a saint. What if they reach the level of a god? This is a powerful life that far exceeds our imagination. It's not hard to imagine that an existence of such a level can be resurrected. Invisible Dragon Theodore laughed. Even many dragons in our dragon god shrine think that the ancestral dragon may not be dead, and is only in a deep sleep now. One day, he will be resurrected in this universe. Yi Mengyao was impressed. Although Invisible Dragon Theodore was a coward, he was still a saint who had reached the invincible realm. He knew a lot of information. For ordinary people, this was top-secret information. But for Theodore, it was nothing. It was completely common sense, and he casually said it. Theodore's life experience alone was a great wealth. What two fools. At this moment, the formless dragon Theodore was secretly laughing in his heart. He had deliberately leaked this information to tempt that damned bastard Xia Ping. How could he not be tempted after knowing the secrets of the gods? When the time came, this abominable brat would inevitably enter the eternal light realm, and perhaps even enter dangerous places like the Forbidden Dark Zone to find the secret and path to become a god. he would probably soon hear that this kid had fallen in a place like the Forbidden Dark Zone. Then he would be able to quickly escape the evil hands of this evil brat. Of course, he wasn't worried that this kid might gain a huge harvest. After all, it was the graveyard of the gods, and the danger it contained was not something a mere saint could imagine. Over the years, countless saints had come one after another to search for the secrets within, but so far, not many saints had been able to find the reason. He didn't believe that this little brat was an exception. Therefore, with just a little trick, he could trap this shameless and despicable bastard to death. Why wouldn't he be happy? In fact, as long as this kid asked, it would tell him everything without hiding anything. The more secrets these gods knew, the faster they would die. The secrets of the gods were not something that mortals could covet. Third sect leader. Chapter 2491. So that's how it is. Thank you for your answer. You can go back now. After hearing this, Xia Ping wanted to seal Theodore and throw him into the world of the classic of mountains and seas again. What? The formless dragon Theodore was so angry that his face turned green. He was simply a tool of this shameless human, using him when he needed him and throwing him away when he didn't. How despicable! But before he could say anything, he was thrown into the world of the classic of mountains and seas in the next second. Do you think what Theodore said is true? Xia Ping looked at Yi Mengyao. I think it's true. He has no reason to lie to us. Plus, I did hear some similar rumors from my family, but I didn't go into detail. Yi Mengyao said in a low voice. If that's the case, it seems that I really have to go to the Eternal Light Realm. I can't let go of such a treasure land. Xia Ping rubbed his chin. He felt that since this place held the secret to becoming a god, he didn't want to miss it. After all, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Whoever missed it would be a fool. But this news isn't limited to the dragons. It seems that the saints of the Qilin, Phoenix, and other divine beast races also know about it. Even the invincible saints might go in. It's very dangerous. Yi Mingyao's expression was solemn. She felt that the Eternal Light Realm wasn't like Theodore's ruins. This place didn't limit the strength of other dragons, so anyone could go in. Even if Xia Ping could deal with ancient Middle Realm dragons now, he wouldn't be a match for ancient dragons or even primordial dragons at all. He would be crushed in an instant. That's not a big problem. Xia Ping rubbed his chin. As long as I transform into a dragon, I believe they won't easily harm dragons of the same race. Plus, I have many clones so I can send them to explore dangerous places. Even if I encounter any danger, I won't have to worry about my life. My ability to stay alive is top-notch. He felt that the Eternal Light Realm was indeed dangerous. Countless saints would go in, but his ability to stay alive was not bad. If he did encounter any danger, he would be able to escape in time. If that's the case, then you can go in. But you must be careful. Yi Mengyao nodded, but she was still a little worried about Xia Ping's safety. No matter what, this was the Eternal Light Realm, a cave left behind by a god. The danger it contained was beyond imagination. Don't worry, I'll be careful. Xia Ping patted his chest. One day later, Xia Ping transformed into another ancient dragon and traveled through the void toward the Dragon God Shrine. Since the Dragon God Shrine controlled the teleportation array formation to the Eternal Light Realm, they could instantly reach the vicinity of the Eternal Light Realm. Soon, he arrived at the famous Dragon God Shrine in the Dragon Realm. A gigantic and majestic palace appeared before Xia Ping. The buildings towered into the clouds and stretched endlessly, like a huge dragon that spanned across the land, exuding an unparalleled aura. There were powerful restrictive formations all around, and this place could be said to be the safest place in the dragon world. There were forbidden areas everywhere, and countless holy dragons lived here. It could be said that this place was the center of the dragon world, and it controlled the fate of the entire dragon world. Vaguely, there seemed to be thick chains of order in the depths of the void, outlining the void. Even if an invincible saint was in this place, he would be completely sealed by the divine restriction here, unable to move. No giant dragon could cause trouble in the Dragon God Shrine. Xia Ping could sense that there was a terrifying power brewing in the depths of the Dragon God Shrine. This power could even kill an invincible saint, and it was the true foundation of the dragon world. And such a foundation had never been used even in the primeval era, when there was a war with the abyssal races. Bush, bush, bush. At this moment, many holy dragons came from all over the dragon world. They had also heard about the appearance of the eternal light realm, and they had all arrived at a square in the outer hall of the Dragon God Shrine. Basically, all the giant dragons that wanted to enter the eternal light realm had to gather here. There are so many giant dragons. Xia Ping looked at the giant dragons flying in from all directions, and he immediately sighed. There were too many giant dragons that had reached the sacred level. He could see hundreds of thousands of immortal dragons with his naked eyes alone. This number was much more than the human race's immortal saints. He had captured 2,000 holy dragons, but it was child's play to the entire dragon clan, far from a serious injury. It could only be said that the dragon clan was indeed a powerful race that had survived since the era of the previous universe. They had lived for countless years, and the number of immortal dragons they produced was simply far greater than the other peak races of this universe. However, the true high-end combat power of the race was still the invincible saints. An invincible saint could fight a group of immortal saints, and at this level, quantity was not the most important. Therefore, to determine whether a race was strong, it still depended on how many invincible saints they had. It was just like in the nuclear era of his previous life. When it came to war, it did not depend on how many conventional weapons one had, but how many nuclear bombs one had stored. Of course, everyone had nuclear weapons, and when they were evenly matched, it naturally depended on the conventional weapons. From this point, it could be seen that the Dragon Clan was indeed one of the strongest among the peak races, and it was not something the human race could compare to at the moment. The current human race could at most maintain a balanced situation in front of the Dragon Clan. Without waiting for Xia Ping to think further, he landed on the square. "Hey brother, you look unfamiliar. Are you a dragon that just ascended to the near-ancient realm?" At this time, a near-ancient realm fire dragon saw Xia Ping and immediately greeted him enthusiastically. "That's right, I indeed just ascended not long ago." Xia Ping nodded. "So that's how it is. I'm Tenshi, what's your name?" Tenshi asked curiously. "My name is Wu Wudi." Xia Ping said. "Wu Wudi? Why does this name sound so familiar?" "Yeah, I seem to have heard of it somewhere. There seems to be a very arrogant dragon called Master Mutato. It's very similar to this name. Could it be that Master Mutato is related to you?" Suddenly, many dragons turned around. During this period of time, they had heard of the name Master Mutato. He was clearly a near-ancient dragon, but he was extremely ferocious and could even kill a middle-ancient dragon. "That's right, that's my big brother, but I haven't seen him for a long time," Xia Ping said casually. "So that's how it is. No wonder the name is so similar, so you're a family. My condolences, your big brother is trapped in the ruins of the invisible dragon Theodore, and he still hasn't come out." Tenshi looked at Xia Ping with a pitiful expression. "It's okay, good dragons don't live long, bad dragons live for hundreds of millions of years. That bad embryo won't die so easily. Of course, if he dies, it can also benefit the public." Xia Ping waved his hand. The surrounding dragons had strange expressions. It seemed that the relationship between these two brothers was not very good. Third Sect Master. Chapter 2492. As time passed, more and more holy dragons appeared on the square of the Dragon God Shrine. There were even ancient dragons, primordial dragons, and primordial dragons. Normally, these dragons would sleep in their lairs and would not easily come out. But now that the news from the Eternal Light Realm had completely alarmed these saint dragons, they did not even bother to sleep and woke up one after another. The primordial dragons stood at the center of the square, emanating an unparalleled aura. Even though they didn't emit any power, they still had an overwhelming presence. One could feel the vicissitudes of time flowing from them, as if they'd lived since the beginning of the universe. Their power was simply unfathomable. There were at least 1,000 primordial dragons like them. Near primordial dragons like Xia Ping were just small shrimps in the square. They could only stand at the edge of the square and didn't have the right to enter the center. The dragon clan is truly powerful. Xia Ping sighed at the appearance of these dragons, as expected of a race that had survived since the era of the previous universe. Just these holy dragons alone were enough to rival the peak races. Moreover, they still had all sorts of trump cards that they hadn't used yet. Their strength was frighteningly deep. Boom! At that moment, a huge platform suddenly appeared on the square. Then, elderly men in luxurious robes with dragon horns on their heads in human form appeared. Each of them emitted a powerful aura, and even the primordial dragon standing at the front couldn't help but lower its head to show respect. Without a doubt, these elders were the true masters of the Dragon God Shrine, giant dragons who had reached the invincible realm. There were 28 such dragons all at once, and they were distributed around the platform. Xia Ping was speechless when he saw this. There were only 9 invincible realm saints in the human clan, but there were 28 invincible realm dragons in the dragon clan. In terms of high-end combat power, the dragon race had an overwhelming advantage, and the human race couldn't compare for now. However, because the dragon race wasn't a creature of this era, they were restricted by the laws of the universe. So if these dragons left the dragon realm and appeared in the outside world, their strength would be greatly suppressed. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't casually leave the dragon realm. Instead, they would stay in the dragon realm to protect it. According to Theodore, the formless dragon, the laws of the universe would only remove the suppression on the invincible dragons after the first god appeared in this universe. But for now, they still couldn't easily appear in the outside world. Fortunately, the laws of the universe imposed many restrictions on these races. Otherwise, the human race, demon race, elemental race, insect race, and other peak races would not have been able to grow. Everyone. At this moment, a bald old man wearing a red singlet, sunglasses, holding a black cane, and flip-flops casually walked out. His face was kind and gentle, like a spring breeze. He was Samuel, the shrine master of the Dragon God Shrine. His strength had reached the invincible realm, and he was also the strongest person in the entire dragon realm. It looked ordinary, but when it transformed into human form, it looked like a wretched old man who still had evil intentions even though he was old. However, none of the giant dragons present dared to underestimate the shrine master of the Dragon God Shrine. He was the most powerful dragon that had lived since the era of the previous universe. His lifespan was longer than all the dragons present. He had witnessed the destruction and birth of the universe, and he had also served the ancestral dragon. He might even have fought against the gods during the era of the gods. Even during the Abyss War of the Primordial Era, the flames of war swept across the universe, and he was ambushed by dozens of Abyss Kings, but he still couldn't be killed. He was also known as the giant dragon with the highest chance of becoming the first dragon god in this era of the dragon race. It was also considered by all the races in the universe to be the closest to the gods. Every giant dragon living in the dragon realm had heard of the legend of the shrine master of the Dragon God Shrine, Samuel. It could be said that most of the giant dragons grew up listening to Samuel's story. Back when the dragon scientist Titania was rampaging through the universe and committing all kinds of evil, it was Samuel, the shrine master of the Dragon God Shrine, who personally joined forces with the other invincible sages to shatter the immemorial heavenly dragon talisman. Titania was chased all over the universe and almost died. This was a living legend. The eternal light realm has appeared. This is a world formed after the fall of the gods. There is a big secret inside, and it might hide the opportunity to become a god. However, it is also very dangerous, and every step is filled with danger. Even the invincible dragons might not be able to survive inside. Samuel, the shrine master of the Dragon God Shrine, said, "Therefore, dragons below the immortal dragon level shouldn't enter. You have to be at least near the immortal dragon level and understand the law of space to survive in the eternal light realm." What? Hearing this, many of the immortal dragons wailed. They couldn't even enter such an important relic of the gods. However, this was the decision of the Dragon God Shrine, and it was also the order of the Shrine Master of the Dragon God Shrine, Samuel. They had to obey. Anyone who dared to disobey the order would be immediately thrown into prison and imprisoned until the end of time. If it was serious, they might even be executed. Some of the immortal dragons and above nodded. They felt that this was a matter of course. It was the eternal light realm, a cave abode left behind by the gods. It was full of danger. Although there were many treasures and opportunities, the danger was also extremely fatal. Even the immortal dragons felt that it was extremely dangerous. If the immortal dragons went in, it would be suicide. How could they obtain opportunities? They naturally wouldn't allow such suicidal behavior. Otherwise, the new generation of the dragon world would be finished. Soon, these immortal dragons left the square of the Dragon God Shrine. They had no hope of entering the eternal light realm. All of a sudden, the entire square seemed to have lost half of the dragons. In fact, even among the dragon clan, the higher the cultivation of the immortal dragons, the rarer the number. Well, that's the general rules. Samuel, the shrine master of the Dragon God Shrine, said, "After entering the eternal light realm, remember to be careful. You can form small teams or fight alone. It's fine as long as you have the confidence to survive. Moreover, this time, it isn't just our dragon clan that is entering the eternal light realm. There are also brats from other clans. You have to be careful and don't fail miserably." After saying this, he gently poked the ground with his walking stick. Suddenly, a huge super-spatial teleportation array appeared on the square of the Dragon God Shrine. Boom! In the blink of an eye, all the immortal dragons present, including Xia Ping, felt the void distort. Time and space changed, and all the immortal dragons on the square were teleported to another void. /book_65922/L Chapter 2493. Boom. In the next second, most of the holy dragons in the dragon realm were transported to a place in the void. There was no end in sight, as if they were in a void of space-time. They had no idea where this place was. A huge sphere appeared in front of them. It was like a sun, and all the dragons felt extremely small in front of this sphere. However, this sphere was not a sun, and it could not emit eternal heat. It was a super world, and it shone with gentle light. It was as if this world was the only source of light in the void, illuminating the dark starry sky. This world lay in the depths of the void, and there seemed to be countless laws of space-time operating deep inside. Thick chains of the Great Path wrapped around this world, as if it was engraved with dense divine prohibition matrices and runes. All the dragons could feel that this world contained an unfathomable aura. It was as if there was a power above the laws of the universe, and it was incompatible with the laws of the universe of this era. Moreover, the surrounding power of the laws of the universe seemed to be faintly rejecting this world. If it was not for the fact that this world was too sturdy, it would have long been crushed to pieces by the vast power of the universe's origin. Impressive. Xia Ping narrowed his eyes. In fact, he could see more than the others. This was not just a simple world. It was basically a miniature version of the universe, and there seemed to be many huge stars born deep inside. These stars automatically operated in the depths of the universe according to a unique pattern. Countless stars combined together to form a super matrix, and when it came crashing down, it had the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. He felt that this sphere was probably more terrifying than he had imagined. Eternal Light Realm. This should be the Eternal Light Realm. Some dragons could not help but exclaim, as expected of a world formed after the fall of the gods. This can be considered a divine kingdom. The laws of the universe operating inside are really unbelievably powerful. I really don't know how terrifying the gods were at their peak. Some primordial dragons looked at the Eternal Light Realm with infatuation. They could feel that the laws of the universe operating in this world were extremely mysterious. They were like precise parts of a machine, and not a single one could be missing. They formed a perfect cycle. This place is indeed very dangerous. Although we haven't entered yet, just seeing the situation in the periphery is enough to prove that this world is not ordinary. Some of the primordial dragons had solemn expressions on their faces. They were extremely confident in their own strength and believed that they absolutely had the ability to return from the eternal light realm alive. However, after seeing the eternal light realm, they could not help but become cautious. There was no doubt that this was a divine world that exceeded all of their imaginations. Damn it, the other races are here too. The expressions of some of the archaic dragons changed. They sensed the rapid changes in the surrounding space. Time and space began to distort. Bang bang bang. In an instant, a huge teleportation formation appeared in the void in the distance. Obviously, even though the dragons were extremely fast, the other races weren't slow either. They were only a few minutes behind the dragons and had also arrived at this place. It was as if as soon as their front foot arrived, these races' rear foot also followed. Crash! Immediately, groups of powerful figures emerged from these teleportation formations. With a flash of light, these figures revealed their original appearances. Giant divine birds stood in the air, their bodies burning with scorching flames. They were like walking suns, and every feather was condensed from flames. Mysterious runes appeared on the feathers, which seemed to contain the power of the laws of the universe. If any of these feathers fell, they would be able to incinerate an entire area. These divine birds were unquestionably phoenixes, mighty beings that could control fire. Their bodies emanated traces of holy aura that were unfathomable. Deep within their bodies flowed an aura of eternity, as if even after death, they could be reborn from the depths of the flames. The Qilin race is here too. The dragons saw that standing next to the phoenixes was a group of powerful Qilins. From their external appearance, they had the head of a lion, the antlers of a deer, the eyes of a tiger, the body of an elk, the scales of a dragon, and the tail of an ox. Their tails were furry like a dragon's tail, with a fleshy corner. The bodies of these Qilins were a bit like musk deer. Qilins had long lives. Even the most ordinary Qilin could live for 2 million years. They could breathe fire, and their voices were like thunder. Their power was in no way inferior to that of the dragons. It's not just the Qilin race. The Kuei race is here too. There was another flash of light, and the dragons discovered that another tyrannical race had been teleported to this place. Powerful Kuei appeared in this place. They were shaped like oxen, and their entire bodies were gray. They had no horns and only one leg. Every time they appeared, there would be a violent storm. Their bodies shone with light like sunlight and moonlight, and their roars were as ear-splitting as thunder. In the past, humans had obtained some Kuei corpses and used their skin to make drums. They also used the bones of thunder beasts as drumsticks. When they beat the drums, the sound of the drums could be heard hundreds of millions of miles away, intimidating enemy soldiers and commanding the world. The Kuei race was also a tyrannical race that had mastered the laws of thunder to the extreme. It was said that the god of the Kuei race was the god of thunder, who controlled the power of thunder in the world. Wherever he went, thunder rumbled, and he was invincible. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In addition to these races, the other powerful divine beast races that had received the news also quickly sent their saints to this place. Clearly, they were also very eager for the treasures of the eternal light realm. If anyone could obtain it, it would be of great benefit to the various races. They were even like the dragon race, a tyrannical race that had survived from the era of the previous universe to this day. They were also life forms that rarely appeared in the universe. So many divine beast races. Yi Mengyao also used the power of the classic of mountains and seas to sense the situation in the outside world at all times. It could be said that she had broadened her horizons. The divine beast race that would never appear in the universe on ordinary days actually appeared at this moment. If these divine beasts appeared in the universe, it would definitely alarm many peak races. This power was also enough to easily reverse the situation of the entire universe. There are indeed many divine beasts. It would be great if I could capture them and imprison them in the classic of mountains and seas. When Xia Ping saw these divine beasts appear, his eyes lit up. He was overwhelmed with emotions and even started drooling. To be honest, his current classic of mountains and seas was still a bit unworthy of its name. Although he had captured many giant dragons to breed in, the species was still too single. Compared to the real classic of mountains and seas, the number and species of creatures were too few. If he could also capture some of these divine beasts, it would definitely be excellent. Yi Mengyao was speechless. She also sensed Xia Ping's thoughts and didn't know what to say. Ordinary people would be somewhat afraid of divine beasts when they encountered them, but this kid was thinking about how to capture them as pets. What did he think of divine beasts? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.